Gets the snap out of the shotgun and screens it out on the right side.
Oh! Intercepted. Tuimoloau will walk into the end zone with a pick six. Jalen Tuimoloau. What a day he is having as he intercepts Sean Clifford's pass and runs it into the end zone.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Not seeing enough penetration. Not seeing enough edge right now.
Dylan Jones back in the game. They fake the handoff to him. Chapin, dancing, locked in, and it is caught. Touchdown. Hal Presley. Boy, Chapin really put some air under that one.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
There's the snap, and it's a fake. It's a pitch to Schmidt, and it's a touchdown. It's a touchdown on the ground by Zach Schmidt. For the second time this season, the Sooners work a fake field goal to perfection.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Bo's got to overcome it on this drive. Travis, that's a receiver open, hits him. Tofili, inside the 20, makes a move, and he'll score. Well, they made up for it. 62 yards to the Knowles.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Today it's the Preston Stone Show for SMU. And he hands off, actually fakes the handoff and wants to take a shot deep down the field. He's got a man. That's a big play. First play of the game for SMU. Rashee Rice, the big play receiver, all the way to the end zone. How about that for fireworks out of the gate?
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Thursday afternoon, closer and closer to a college football weekend. There are a couple of games tonight, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. Max Olson has this stop rate. He'll join us tomorrow at 4, but the stop rate, the latest on after college football games over the weekend, who has the best stop rate. And you look at the names, and most of them make sense. Some schools, though, despite it, have not been winning. Also today, Robert Griffin III will join us around 4:20 Central Time, former Baylor Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and now a broadcaster and all over ESPN with what he does. Gabe Eichert, former Oklahoma All-American center. He'll join us today at 5. We have Off the Radar Top 5, Jennifer Smoak on fantasy football, and so much more. Paul Catalina to my left, Craig Smoak to my right. And I want to read this. This is part of a replay message. I won't read the whole thing, but this is from Stephen Vitti. Well said, you guys, when we're talking about the college football playoff, the release. Keep up the good work. It can be tough sometimes to cover college football, especially considering the way that the people running it act as if you guys want my honest opinion about the college football committee, nonsense, whatever. First, disband the current committee of 13 people who have no business running this sad circus. Second, I'd suggest putting in 12 people who have absolutely no ties whatsoever to any Power 5 conference. That would be tough. And reinstate the BCS computer as the 13th person in the room. Maybe we might get honest committee responses than the lying narcissist we have in there now.
Well, I mean, I think the issue starts at the top of the, what the mission statement has been for the whole time. And I think that part of the problem is that, Bill Hancock has kind of set it out. This is what the college football playoff wants. I also think, to get 12 people who have no context in a Power 5 conference, how far do you have to go outside to do that? Do you have to get people from the Ivy League and the SWAC and all this other stuff? And then at that point, what interest do they have in something that has nothing to do with them other than helping be neutral moderators? I don't know. I get it, and I wonder, you look at the committee and there are people in the room that, one of whom we know really well,
yes.
Jim Grobe, who I know has an abundance of common sense. In fact, that's what I would say is one of his strongest traits as a coach. But you get in a room and things start going a certain way, and then, there's agendas that you step into before you're even there. So I don't even know how to describe the committee. I do agree with Craig that there's no way they're watching all those games.
Yeah, Will Shields, former All-American, a Hall of Famer, played with the Kansas City Chiefs, played at Nebraska. Gene Taylor, the athletic director at Kansas State, who I think will get on the show next week. Bader plays Kansas State in Waco next week. So that's from the replay. There's a lot of opinions that we don't see during the day, during the time we're live on the show, in the chat room, or also as well the text lines. So, best stop rates. Which teams, and yes, we will get, Craig has, with what he's going and doing with the off the radar, we'll get into the World Series and what's happening with Houston and Philadelphia a little bit later on today, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's just a tease, Craig. That's just a tease. Now, which defenses have improved their stop rate ranking the most since the end of September? College football teams. If I throw Texas out there, would you believe it?
I don't know. That second game, they had a pretty good stop rate.
They've gone from 69th overall to 33rd.
Yeah, okay.
Missouri, 61st to 26th. Clemson from 47th to 13th.
Yeah, they have a good defense.
Notre Dame, 57th overall to 29th. And again, stop rate is how many points do you allow per drive. Notre Dame is now 29th. Kansas State, 52nd, now to 25th.
They probably did that in 1 week.
They might have done that 48-0 against Oklahoma State. And there's others that are higher ranked, like, for example, all right, does this surprise you? Michigan, number 1.
No. They're fantastic defense.
Illinois, number 2.
Nope. Their whole thing is.
We hear a lot about Michigan and Ohio State and the collision course that they're on, and I get that, but doesn't Michigan have Illinois on their schedule?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know.
I believe they do.
I'm looking right now.
And I'm not saying that Michigan won't be favored. They will be, but that's not a gimme with the way Illinois is playing right now. And Michigan would be favored maybe by 5, 6, 7 points. I don't know.
Michigan plays Illinois at home on November 19th.
All right, that's in 3 weeks.
Right before they play Ohio State. So
this is the one that always, when I see their name, and I go, wow, San Jose State, number 3. Ohio State. How much of a job has the new defensive coordinator from Oklahoma State already done for the Buckeyes?
Jim Knowles has done a great job. And the question that Ohio State had all year long was, is it scheme or is it talent? Because we've seen people misidentify talent all the time for good teams. And Ryan Day hasn't really done that. Well, clearly he wasn't doing it there because the scheme is there and now the talent is producing.
So Ohio State, number 4. You get a lot of what they do offensively. They're very explosive offensively, but not enough credit has been given right now to what they're also doing on defense. Alabama, 5. That kind of surprises me when you have the shootout game with Tennessee, but they're overall number 5 stop rate.
But look, they shut down a really good offense in Mississippi State. I mean, just completely crushed them into dust. So, yeah, no, I mean, I think the biggest thing about Alabama is not that their one-off game that they lost, but their kind of roller coaster of, in their best seasons, every Alabama game was them versus kind of a faceless opponent, and it looked the same way. They're not as consistent this year.
No.
And that's why I think what their games look like.
Georgia's 7, not a surprise. They just keep beating people up and now have the really ultimate test, at least it appears with Tennessee. Boise State had the tough start. They're now 6-2. In fact, they play Brigham Young. Play Brigham Young this weekend. Boise State, number 8. Now, here's the one that's outside the box that doesn't make sense because of their record. Damn Iowa State. Number 9 overall with the overall best stop rate. Number 9 overall, Iowa State, and yet they are now 0-5. Goose egg and 5 in the Big 12.
Yeah, their offense sucks, and they still don't have very good special teams. It's almost like Matt Campbell going over his offseason plans and what they need to work on just, continues to feel like special teams isn't all that important, or at least it seems to rear its ugly head. So I'm not surprised by that. Anybody who's watched Iowa State knows they've got a good defense, and the rest of it's just very blah and not very good. So, we'll see how Hunter Dekkers continues to get better as time goes on, but they have no run game to speak of. And they're basically just hoping that they can, get enough points. They know they'll get enough stops, but they just hope they get enough points. And more often than not, they haven't. And that's why they're winless in the Big 12.
Clemson 13. They have been, Paul, you even mentioned 2 or 3 weeks ago they started to turn the corner, even though they've had to escape. Escape may not be the right word. Liberty 16. Tulane 17. Iowa, as good as their defense has been, they did get beat up by Ohio State, I think it was, but 18th in the country. We know that, of course, means nothing because they can't score. Here's one that kind of surprised me, though. 22nd is Tennessee. 22nd, Tennessee averaging 1.63 points per drive right now, the Volunteers. So those are Tennessee, Cincinnati, Kansas State, 24-25. Texas is at 33. I mentioned them earlier. Baylor is 50.
Yeah, it's
West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Brigham Young,
No, I'm sure they creeped up a little bit last week. They had a very good stop rate against Texas Tech. So,
one of the greatest football players at his position, and sometimes thought of as the greatest at his position, Ray Guy from Southern Miss, passed away. Known for what he could do with a football with his foot, and again, thought of as perhaps the greatest punter in the history of the game.
I'm trying to think of who would be second to Ray Guy.
Oh, I could think of some guys that were punters, but
like that were that dominant at it for as long as Ray Guy was. I just can't. I mean, and punting is a hard thing to quantify a lot, but Ray Guy was the
Shane
dude.
Leckler.
Okay, yeah, it's a very elite fraternity of guys who were that long tenured and that dominant. And Shane Leckler will probably be the second punter that they put in.
Gil Brandt had a list of the greatest punters he put out. I don't know exactly when it was. It was maybe even 2 or 3 years ago. At number 1, as I get down the list, at number 1, he had Shane Leckler. Punted for 13 years with the Raiders, and then punted for almost a decade with the Texans. Yale Larry with Detroit was also, I'm thinking about another guy that played offensive line with Minnesota. And then Ray Guy, listed Ray Guy third. Sammy Ball 4, and then we'll say Sean Lendetta. Never thought of him as like a booming punter, but a guy that punted forever with the Giants, Buccaneers, Rams, Packers, and Philadelphia Eagles.
If Gil says he was good, then he was.
Yeah. If Gil Brandt says it, then you can mean it and you could feel it. All right. Anything else from today's particular? Oh, Craig, you had a little note. Not sure exactly if this is particularly about Oklahoma State or Spencer Sanders, but Oklahoma State went from the favorite this week against Texas Tech, and now it's a pick'em game. Is that correct? No, that's TCU and Texas Tech. Sorry, Oklahoma State's game is now a pick'em game.
I think so, yeah. I don't know. I just mentioned to you guys before the show that I saw on Twitter that, the odds for was the Oklahoma State game had changed a little bit, and there's murmurs that perhaps Spencer Sanders doesn't play this weekend. So obviously that would make a massive difference going between him and Gunnar Gundy. And, I don't follow all that stuff closely enough to know like exactly what tipped off folks to believe in that other than there was a line change of some sort. And again, it was something I saw just kind of in passing, but saw enough of it to believe that, it looks like there's, enough scuttlebutt that, perhaps he doesn't play this weekend. So if that were to be the case, and I'm certainly not reporting that would be very notable. And, at this point, Oklahoma State just kind of trying to hang on as best they can, given all of their injuries. And, Mike Gundy said last week after they lost that, obviously it was very embarrassing, 40-0 to Kansas State, that they had practiced differently. He did the typical thing people do of like throwing out enough information to get you interested, but did not actually say anything. So he throws out like, we did some things differently in practice. In the moment anybody wants to ask him like, well, what exactly did you do differently? He don't want to answer the question. So you read it at how you want to. Like if you want to say that they didn't practice at all last week, you could make that argument. I mean, they certainly didn't look like a team that did. If you want to say that they practiced only 2 days or something, you could make that argument. He left it vague. So that's, up to interpretation, but it certainly is they were not doing what they typically do last week because they didn't have enough bodies. He was trying to protect the guys they did have, what have you. But to what extent they did or didn't do anything, I don't know. But clearly not their norm. And now they're back to their norm, but is that even going to be good because they're shorthanded? I don't know. I don't know what their health situation is. They're going to guard that, so it's very interesting.
They started out a 6-point favorites, probably about what you would think, and now Kansas is a 1-point favorite.
There you go.
Well, and again, there's different types of there's different books and stuff like that, but that seems to be the consensus right now.
Bet Online has them as a pick 'em right now. Could it also mean though that we're tracking positively on Jalen Daniels as well?
No, it could be too. I didn't think about that. Yeah. All right, so
I think it definitely could. I mean, he's back practicing. I don't know that he swings it that wildly. But then again, that's not my forte. So, I'll leave that to the Vegas folks to tell us what that exactly means. But, yeah, the thought, I guess I saw fleeting tweets, was Spencer Sanders. But, yeah, perhaps that's the Jalen Daniels factor. But, man, that would be interesting to see him flip that in Kansas's favor. That's a lot of praise for him.
Baylor's an underdog in Norman.
Yep.
4.5 to 3.5 depends on which one you look at.
Been underdog all week.
3.5 and have been throughout the week from the start at 4.5. Oklahoma favored and now 3.5.
On film, I don't know why, but I guess on paper with the fact that they've won a couple games and are feeling confident and they're at home, I think that all matters in the long run. I think Baylor being inconsistent is the only reason why I'm not ready to just dive full into them winning this game. I do think they're the better team. I don't know if, top to bottom star rating they're as talented, but I think they're probably as close as they've ever been to Oklahoma in talent-wise, like given the, exodus of Caleb Williams and company that we saw, and then what Venables and them scrambled to put together with what they already had. I think these teams are, at worst, really even talent-wise. And Baylor, based on what we saw last week, was still more impressive than what I saw Oklahoma do against Iowa State. I mean, Oklahoma, kudos to them for winning that football game. Got a couple good backs who led the way on the ground, got enough stops on defense. Iowa State's offense stinks, though. I mean, they really do. And, that was still a 2-score game when all was said and done. Now, it was in Ames, so I give them credit. Baylor had to scratch and eke out a win, or get a win out there as well. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but there's nothing that I've seen from Oklahoma that I'm like, yeah, they're the definite favorites this weekend. I'm keen to roll with Baylor, but I do see that Oklahoma's favored, and they are at home, like I said. So it'll be very interesting.
So those are a couple of games to look at. I got a couple of chat rooms comments I want to bring up.
Yeah, I do think when you look matchup wise, of course, we kind of all missed on the big matchup last week. Baylor turned it on its ear, which makes them, it makes Baylor even more confusing to pick.
Exactly.
Because
we didn't miss them because we didn't think that they could win the game. I said it. I said right before the game, I said, I have a weird sense to pick them. And I'm not trying to make it sound like, oh, well, I was right in the long run. But I had this pull, I just suddenly started feeling like, man, I think they're going to win this freaking game. And part of it was how I felt like the buildup was going to actually empower them and, become a distraction of sorts for Texas Tech. And certainly that's kind of how it played out. It's not the whole way it played out, but that had a big part of the reason of why it played out the way that it did. Tech, a little overwhelmed. Baylor in there as sharp and focused as they've been all season. But, do they turn around and still have that edge to them? That's what you can't predict. Ohio State's showing up with an edge pretty much every week. Those really good teams. And that's what I think is the difference between Baylor being a really good team and being just a good team like they are now is if I had more faith in them to week in and week out have that same game face on they had in Lubbock, I'm picking them this weekend without a question, even though they've only won there once. I would do that in a second, but I just don't trust them enough yet to – it's not even a talent thing. It's just I don't trust them enough to go up there with the mindset. And if they do, I think they'll be in good shape. But if they, listen to all the talk this week and, hey, we've won a couple games in a row and, there's not like all of this buildup in Joey McGuire and former coaches, and they're trying to take your spot, and all these other things, blackout, Mahomes, all these things that were used as motivation. Name a single thing that's really motivation other than it's playing Oklahoma for probably the last time in Norman, which to these kids is probably sort of kind of a thing, but I don't know that that's really weighing on them or motivating them, that like this might be the last time Baylor plays in Norman. You know, like they're getting to play there, so I don't know that they really worry about 10 years from now. So what is their fuel? And that's what Dave Aranda's hammered home over and over again, is having to create your own energy and, you know, not need all of those outside things to be your sources of motivation. So if they can overcome that and they show up this weekend like they showed up last weekend, or like they showed up in Ames, then, you know, I think this team might be one where you start to wrap your arms around them and go, okay, it's finally clicked for them now. But I need to see that again this week to believe it's now a constant.
Was last week the exception, or was last week turning the corner in who they're going to be on their way throughout the rest of the year? Doesn't mean someone still won't jump up and get them. And I don't even mean jump up. That means it sounds like somebody would be an underdog. The two biggest games in the SEC, Georgia, Tennessee. Georgia's favored by like 8 to 9 points. The game between Alabama and LSU in Baton Rouge, Alabama's favored by nearly 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be, just because LSU's played well.
What does that say? That Alabama and Georgia, even though LSU is ranked 10 in the college standings and in the top 15 overall, and here you have Tennessee that has played fantastic, and yet there's still that much separation between the two teams, Alabama and Georgia, that have run the SEC for a long time, even though LSU's had their runs too.
And look, I don't think that LSU can't win that game or won't win that game, but just based on, you know, look what happened to LSU against Tennessee, and there's a gap. I mean, there's not like, you know, the people, the powers that be in the marketing arm of the SEC can pretend like there's no gap between the top teams and the rest of them, but there clearly is, and that's fine. There's a gap in most leagues that aren't named the Big 12, but there's a gap, and there's even gaps in the Big 12. They're just not as prodigious as that, so that's why. But look, if Alabama, you know, messes around and lets LSU get some momentum, LSU will be in the game and could win it. If Alabama plays at completely full strength and full speed, LSU does not have enough depth to keep with them, and that's the difference. But you know, I think the biggest issue with this Alabama team so far, and a lot of their fans would tell you this, is they have not realized how good they are, or they're not cohesive like teams in the past have been.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big org. I mean, I think they're good. They're clearly very good. I just don't think they have, you know, some of the dynamic aspects that they've had in the past. Like, you can't have Jerry Jeudy every single year for like 20 years in a row, and they've damn near had that. Like, I mean, you know, they've been so uber talented that when they're slightly not as talented, it's like, this is not the same Bama. Like, do y'all realize how ridiculous it is when we start criticizing Alabama sometimes? We're like, this isn't Bama. They're like freaking one-loss team 9 weeks into the season. We're acting like they've lost like 4 games. We do this every year with them, and every year they walk away with like maybe 2 losses. Like, maybe 2 losses. And we've been doing this for 20 years now at this point. It's really kind of silly that they've been that good for that long. But, you know, I think I like Alabama in this game. I do think that LSU has a terrific opportunity in front of them. I think the stuff with Vegas, like, you know, just because Vegas has that as a giant spread doesn't mean that that's exactly what they think is going to happen. You know, it also plays into where the money's coming in and, you know, where they're wanting the bets to go. So, you know, I think they must feel like they're getting some pretty good money from each side to have kind of a hefty spread like that. But it's very interesting that it's as wide as it is. And I'm sure those who dabble with that can give a much more detailed, nuanced explanation of why that may be this hyped game that's double-digit spread. But I think Alabama's going to be just fine in the long run. I don't guarantee that they're going to beat LSU by any means, but I do think they should be favored in this game. But there's a lot to like about what LSU's doing. I mean, they got some dynamic players. They've got a terrific, you know, transcendent type star in Harold Perkins, amongst some other very good guys. And, you know, I think that the way you're seeing that offense kind of come along, it's, you know, it's not certainly not you know, Joe Burrow from a few years ago and that kind of a deal, but it can, you know, it can hurt you if you're not careful. I think that Daniels has really, evolved over the course of the season and has become a a real threat for them, and they've been surprising to me. I was not expecting them to be in this position at this point, but Brian Kelly's a damn good coach, man. And the cupboard was completely bare. I mean, yeah, it was not as full as it should have been, but it wasn't completely bare. So LSU's intriguing this weekend.
Yeah, people got their pot shots in on him early, and he's turning those screws as he's done wherever he's been. A couple of notes. Troy, nobody has a better stop rate than the College Football Selection Committee, shutting down postseasons for good teams for years to come. Also from Patrick, and I had this from others, they really did enjoy our conversation yesterday to start the show on the college football playoff standings. Also enjoyed Paul's 5 questions. All of them appeared to be on point. That's from Patrick Cheney. From Jonathan, I believe it's WREHE. Just need more committees, not just ESPN, and people that aren't athletic directors at conferences or players that played against these particular teams. And Paxton, I enjoyed the committee conversation, and we enjoyed your feedback on the committee and the conversation too. Super chat.
Yeah, we got from Hayden Maxwell, $5 super chat. Hayden, thanks as always. Craig, if the rumor of Gonzaga having a pretty high chance of getting accepted to the Big 12 is true, then why not go for the other top G5 team, Villanova?
Yeah, I was thinking after the show yesterday, I was, just the Gonzaga news broke while we were talking. It's not like, I'll say, it's not like we were sitting here before the show meeting and like, okay, this Gonzaga angle and breaking it down. That's not what we do. And so we're just reacting on the cuff to Gonzaga. And I guess in my mind, I was thinking of it as the most selfish Zags fan ever was, I know I made the comment about, well, if you're Gonzaga, you want all your sports. And the more I thought about that after the show, I was like, no, you wouldn't, because that's a lot of travel for a lot of sports that are just way more convenient to be where they are. So, I mean, it does make a lot of sense for them as a basketball entity alone to go play somewhere that's a much bigger stage, whether that's the Big 12 or the Pac-12 or, it seems like those are pretty much their options. But, yeah, they're a desirable brand. I saw some comments about, well, they wouldn't be the same Gonzaga if they had to play the schedule. Like, are we going to act like they don't play a really good schedule and play all the top teams every year? And it's not just in the tournament. They play them in the preseason. I know it's the West Coast Conference isn't the Big 12 week in and week out, but I don't think Gonzaga's really untested most years. I think when it's all said and done, they line up pretty much well with everybody. And it's, I know they're, there's the blowout versus Baylor in the national title game, but that doesn't change the fact that they've beaten a lot of really good teams along the way. So I don't worry about them getting into the Big 12 and not being able to week in and week out play. I think that if anything, their stock gets boosted by the fact that they could then say, hey, we're going to go play Kansas and we're going to play Baylor and we're going to play Texas Tech and we're going to play, adding in the new schools. So, yeah, just on the surface, as a basketball entity, I think it would be awesome for the Big 12. I think it would be great marketing. I think it would be really intriguing for the basketball side of things. And to your point, it would make sense to then go and add a similar type of a team and go the other direction perhaps and keep a team that's somewhat closer to the other side of your conference regions. And I would love to see a Villanova. I think that would be amazing to see them brought in, and that would be some really awesome foresight on the part of Brett Yormark, if that's even doable. I don't know how that would work, but that would be awesome.
Maybe UConn. Maybe that's a name.
Maybe UConn. But they do have a football team, and Gonzaga, I don't know if you want Jim Mora Jr. in the Big 12. Do you want UConn football in the Big 12? I mean, they're doing better this year.
I'm talking about if it's just basketball only.
Right, but they have a football program. So what I'm saying is, why would you do that? Gonzaga doesn't have a football program.
No, I'm just saying if you brought up a non-Power 5 basketball program, and really in basketball, saying non-Power 5 is silly because there's some really damn good. Gonzaga's schedule, I'm trying to say this, they have Michigan State, Texas, and Kentucky. Their second, third, and fourth games of the year.
Yeah, and look,
Purdue and West Virginia, Baylor, Washington. They are absolutely as high level as you could be when it comes to what they do. Now, their conference might struggle, but, man, their non-conference schedule is fantastic.
Like I said yesterday, I do think that that's kind of what hurts them when they get to the tournament is that they haven't been in tournament mode for the same amount of time as the Power 5 conferences have, and that's what hurts them. But you put them in, the Power 5 conference, and Mark Few's already recruiting lottery picks in the West Coast Conference. He's going to get them and maybe even one or two more a year in the Big 12. So I would think that attrition only means that instead of rolling into the tournament at 28-2 every year, they might roll in at 24-6
and be better,
and be better,
and maybe be better. And unfortunately for them, unbelievable the way they were just hammered by Baylor in the championship game. People look at that as well, but they have been right there on the doorstep many, many times. From Mike Bean, Villanova is a founding member of the Big East. Part of their recruiting strategy is around that entire culture.
Well, in the area, too, like playing in Philly, in New York, and all that area. So, yeah, that would be maybe a reach. But, again, it's still not. If it's about money, then Villanova. Go to Villanova.
Here's a note. Gonzaga.
Or go to the Big 12,
outgrew their conference.
Yes, they did. Right? It's not their fault that everybody can't keep pace.
Show memo. You do know teams traveling to the Northwest, the cost is almost double for teams going there. Also, each school will take less money from them as they add nothing to the payout.
Well, do you know that for sure?
Yeah, I don't know that.
Do you know that for sure? Do you know that Gonzaga basketball wouldn't add something to the payout? I mean, if you got the facts there, then okay, then yeah, it wouldn't make a ton of sense. But I mean, we're not just creating this out of thin air. This isn't like, hey, you know what would be cool? Gonzaga joining the Big 12. Like, this was a report yesterday, so, looking at it on the surface for what it is, like, would it be cool to see Gonzaga basketball in the Big 12? Yeah, I think that'd be a good move. Now, if you want to get into the details of it and travel costs and things like that, then, yeah, maybe it's not the wisest move for them. We'll see on that. I think that's probably what they're trying to figure out right now. But, yeah, maybe for Villanova it wouldn't make sense. But if you just throw it out there like, hey, would it be cool? Yeah, it would be cool if Villanova joined. But, details-wise, that might not work out. So let's let them sort through that. But I think it's kind of a daring and smart move if you're Brett Yormark to have pursued it.
One of the things also about Gonzaga, if you want to look outside the box, which is what Brett Yormark might be doing, is the fact that it does give somebody, at least even though an 11-hour drive, it is still somebody in that northwest part of the country near Brigham Young. And that's why that's why Arizona is always so intriguing. It's because of where they are, what time zones they can be in, but also imagine even their basketball history and tradition, a part of maybe the future Big 12. That's just, we've thought about that and discussed that before. We'll have Max Olson, Robert Griffin III, Gabe Eichert, plus Off the Radar Top 5, and also Jen Smoak. Sports Tonight right here, tonight, 10:30, our show on the CW channel. Thanks to Emery Winter for what he does with that every single day. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza, pepperoni's favorite pizza, the large pepperoni Magnifico. We've had it before. It is loaded. I mean, there is no room for anything else on the pie. Nothing. It's just pepperoni from top to bottom, left to right. It is loaded with pizza, pepperoni. And the pepperoni Magnifico, the large, is $9.99. You can go online to marcos.com and order it for $9.99 using the code word PEPMAG. Also, one large topping pizzas, carry out only, for $8.99 each. Yeah, you got to go pick it up, but it's worth the price. You can get online and order at $8.99 to go. Unlimited one topping medium pizzas, $7.99 each. Plus, they have their pizza bowls, and they have wings, and they have salads, and they have soft drinks. And if you want whatever style pizza, you could put it together your own, from all meat to pepperoni Magnifico to veggie pizza. They have the cauliflower crust as well. Bob Mock has 5 stores in Central Texas. Wherever you are, you can get these deals by going to marcos.com.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Allen Samuels in Waco is celebrating with an incredible lineup of 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. These vehicles bring power to plow through any obstacles or the smooth, peaceful ride you'd expect from a Jeep. Jeep SUVs are also known for their design and technology. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a 3rd row. Come see what Allen Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Baylor women's basketball tonight will host Southwest Baptist in an exhibition at the Farrell Center. Garrett Ross will be covering that for us. He and Jack were at the press conference opening the media session. By the way, Eric Mateos, Baylor's offensive line coach, Paul, he's a graduate of Southwest Baptist.
I did not know that.
And so maybe he'll catch a moment, although they're kind of locked in right now to see what's going to happen with that game. Get ready for Oklahoma. The Sooners in Norman favored in that game. And, again, by, 3.5, 4 points. Tonight, college football, UTEP at Rice. Rice is 4-4.
Yeah.
And how about this one? Appalachian State, after that glorious win in A&M, then they've kind of lost a couple of 3 games. Coastal Carolina.
I'll take Coastal cover.
Can you tell me anything about them this year?
They win. It's what they do. Coastal just wins. I mean,
Jamie Chadwell is one of the best coaches in college football. That's probably going to be a hot name in the carousel. Grayson McCall is one of the better quarterbacks. They've been together for forever. Coastal's been doing this for a while. I mean, that's Coastal football for you. It's a matter of
I'm talking about this year's team.
Grayson McCall has been there forever. Yeah. Jamie Chadwell is one of the hot names in college, and they're doing what they've been doing, I feel like.
Yeah, they've been rolling. The loss was to Old Dominion, 49-21. They beat Marshall, who had beaten Notre Dame. Of course, Marshall's gone a little south. Beat Buffalo, beat Army to start the year, 38-28. That guy's, we had him, Jamie Chadwell, on this show, the Chandeliers, right? Fantastic what he's doing right now. And you wonder if he'll be there next year, and that's unfortunate because I'm sure Coastal Carolina would love that. At the same time, it's just part of what happens. You're at a place that maybe somebody can throw money and money whip you a little bit, or maybe even better goals, bigger goals, even though what he's done is fantastic.
I said it at the time when Jeff Collins let go, but I think Jamie Collins is the perfect fit for Georgia Tech. Jamie Chadwell is perfect for Georgia Tech in that, look, he runs a very kind of specific offense. Like he runs, I don't want to say a gimmick offense, but he can recruit to that offense. He's got the kind of vibe that will work at Georgia Tech. And I think that because of that vibe, he will get a much longer leash to rebuild a program that is very much in need of it. Although they haven't played too terribly bad since Jeff Collins has been fired, they just don't have players there right now. And Georgia Tech has to recruit very specifically. You have to have certain things on your transcript. It's not as hard to get into as a Stanford or maybe a Duke, but it's not far off. I mean, you're almost kind of splitting hairs, but they need a coach who is fine with the specific recruiting path he's going to have to go on, which is why when people said Deion Sanders at the beginning, I don't think that's a big enough job for Deion Sanders. One, they just said it because of Atlanta, but also because of that specific recruiting path. I think you want somebody with expertise in that, which is not what Deion has. And Deion's going to go for big fish, and he doesn't want to have to worry if they've taken 3 trigonometry classes before they're a sophomore in high school or not.
Adrian Martinez, this is Adam Rittenberg on ESPN. Kansas State mom on starter as Martinez returns. Has been a full participant in practice this week for Kansas State. Decision not yet on who will start for the Wildcats in their game at home against 24th-ranked Texas. I would think it would be hard, no matter if Martinez was the guy, right now to pull the trigger. Although if you're the starting quarterback and you come back and it looks fine, but the way Howard has played, it would be hard for me if I'm Chris Kleiman. This may not be fair, but it would be hard for me to change this week.
They can do more things in the offense with Howard in there, but Adrian Martinez, I mean, they both won games. I mean, it's a real challenge. It's in some ways a good problem to have, and in other ways it's a bad problem to have because you don't want to mess with your momentum. I don't know what I would do if I was him.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. I mean, we need to know what Adrian Martinez is health-wise first, right? I mean, is he healthy?
Says he's a full go.
Okay, well, then, yeah, if he's full go, then, yeah, I think that's, a good problem to have, and you're certainly not going to tip it right now. So you play it close to the vest, and you roll something out there Saturday, and if I had to choose, then, I think you're probably going Will Howard because he's a hot hand, and you don't have to limit your passing game as much as you've had to protect Adrian Martinez at times. It's clear they weren't throwing the full meal deal out there with him, partly because they wanted to avoid him and his pitfalls. But you do that and you kind of play, I don't know if skittish is the right word, but you don't unveil your full arsenal, and Will Howard allows you to do that. So I would think that they stick with him just because of what he gives them in the passing game. But you've got a great curveball to potentially throw with Adrian Martinez.
It says Colin Klein, the offensive coordinator, on track to be fully healthy for Saturday's game. He, of course, left that game very early against TCU with that leg injury in the first quarter, and he was one of the great stories in college football at the time. And then, of course, he goes out, and now Howard might end up being one of the next great stories in college football. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with that game. Texas, a slight favorite up in Manhattan against Kansas State, who just obliterated Oklahoma State 48-0 in that one. Now, the IARP, we discussed this yesterday with Kansas. Kansas self-imposed penalties, Bill Self and Coach Townsend, 4 games, etc. There's other things that they, like the midnight fog, whatever. There's some other things that they also aren't able to do or can't do, recruiting, whatever. Louisville, the IARP. This was another one of these that you thought might end up being pretty bad, right? Paul, you couldn't talk about Kansas. Can you talk about Louisville? Because they looked like, it appears as if they got a slap on the wrist as well.
They don't, they didn't get, what's the IARP? Again, the IARP was still built out of the NCAA and trying to do something. Why did Kansas do it? Because they knew that they weren't going to get a stiff penalty from the NCAA, or they knew that if they did the same with Louisville, if they said go to the IARP, it's just going to be the same thing and take a little bit longer. So there's more distance between the actual violation and what happens, because the longer, and we see this everywhere, the longer it is from the time that the rule breaking happens, the less anyone cares. Because you know what? All the people involved, I mean, except in this case at Kansas for Bill Self, they're all in the coaching staff, they're all pretty much gone, but the players involved are gone. Everything that's been affected by it is over. So nobody cares anymore whether there should be a stiff punishment or not. But Rick Pitino has no penalty on him, and he can go continuing coaching at Iona and living about his life. And the penalties on Louisville are, nothing that anybody that, wears a red up there should be crying about. So, yeah, I mean, again, all these things happen, and they say this, there could come back with more on Kansas, and whether it's deserving or not, why is anybody should be afraid of it? Nothing they can do or will do is anything more than a slap on the wrist. And unfortunately for Oklahoma State, they got maybe the last bullet in the gun.
No, there'll be somebody else. Yeah, there'll be somebody else that's used in, kind of as I don't know, something.
I just don't think so.
One of the things about Rick Pitino, he said this: it's good that someone will actually look at the facts. This is not an actual quote, but paraphrasing him, it's good to have somebody that will actually look at the facts instead of what might be a false narrative and just opinions or allegations. So he, of course, has done a nice job where he is. And two of his assistants, though, I think get show cause for a couple of years. And so Louisville doesn't get much. In fact, the quote from the panel concluded the NCAA failed to show evidence that Adidas, cited as the orchestrator of a scheme to funnel recruits to its partner schools, was a representative of the university.
Yeah, so that's also good news for Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Because
you agree with that?
Do I agree with it? I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't see the evidence that Adidas wasn't a, representative of the university. Well, here's what I do agree with. Adidas isn't a representative of anybody except Adidas, right? So what do they care as long as the guy's going to rep Adidas?
There's no text messages, phone calls, any paper trail.
The FBI did all that stuff, and we're here where we are now. But to say specifically in a legal sense they are a representative of the university when they are representing, I mean, technically they're representing any university that has a deal with Adidas, so they're not really a representative of Louisville or school. Kansas. Yeah. They're a representative of Adidas and everything under Adidas's purview. So, I mean, while that might be splitting hairs,
Craig?
I don't really have a strong opinion on this. I don't know enough about the Louisville basketball story at this stage to really have a really well thought out, built out opinion on this. I basically roll my eyes and yawn whenever penalties in NCAA basketball get brought up because it's so inconsistent and I don't even know what all the details are of what they're actually accused of. I know the loose ends of what we read over time, but it's not something I've followed or tracked or cared much about. At the same time they would say, well, why are you worried about it? Yesterday we're trying to just say Paul was afraid to say anything, but it's Kansas is admitting penalties. I don't know why we're dancing around. They admitted they cheated and they're cutting it off at the pass to try and avoid more penalties. So it is what it is there. And guess what? Bill Self mocked all of that when he had an opportunity to. He did it, watched the video with him and the Adidas chain and all of that stuff, just basically, blowing the whole thing away like it matters not at all to his program. And certainly it's still lasted and lingered. But, that's the kind of flaunting that, why am I supposed to sit here and take it all serious when the guys who are being investigated are basically doing a music video telling you how much they're not worried about this?
Yep.
So
and I'm with you on this now. It's still something we have to we'll mention, but just dig into it. You can do that on the chat room and the text line, and also wherever you are because
it's been more than 5 years.
I don't.
Well,
how long was it for Baylor?
Yeah.
Who do I cover? I cover
6, 7
Baylor.
years,
like,
yeah.
you know, I don't think anybody out there in like Louisville, Kentucky really gave a dadgum about Baylor after, 3 years. Like, they might pop up if the subject comes up and say, oh, yeah, that was horrible, or say, oh, yeah, I remember that. But I doubt seriously that there's a bunch of people who were following that along the way. So, yeah, I didn't keep track for 5 years of the Louisville basketball story. And so, to see it reach a conclusion is good, but I wouldn't know one way or the other, like if there was some great victory here or if it's miscarriage of justice, or I have no idea.
All right, let's move on then. Let's take a break. Come back.
Just saying,
what I'm saying is you're right, but today the story came out, and it's in Kansas yesterday, so kind of get it out, and now who's next on the clock?
Well, I mean, Kansas with this committee.
They still have that decision.
Theirs
but
were self-imposed.
Yeah. All right, this is Sikkim, 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress in Robinson, Texas, taking care of all of what you need when it comes to your dental work, and it could be something like all of a sudden you bite into something and, oh, man, something hurts, whether it's a back molar or somewhere in your mouth, and you need immediate help. You could contact them. It might be something where you have a cracked tooth, might be a cavity that all of a sudden has gotten worse, and maybe the need of a root canal. I've had a couple of root canals with Dr. Steve Childress and Stonewood Dental, and I got to tell you, that used to mean I didn't want to go anywhere near a dentist if that was even brought up, and it would make me like almost not sleep. But way he does things, it was just fine. Doesn't mean it wasn't just like easy, but the way he handles his patients, the way he handled mine and some of my dental work, it was just fine. Also, just as simple as doing teeth cleaning every 6 months. Yeah, that's fundamental. But sometimes, and maybe you like me, you got away from that for a while, and then you're suffering the consequences. If, in fact, you're a part of what you do there, if you're a patient for them, a customer for them, they will make sure you stay on track. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgin Ford.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
The text line, which is 254-339-1122. Glenn makes me crack up. Please, you three guys pick against Baylor at work last week. It did.
Too late, Glenn.
Oh.
I already sent in my pick.
I have not sent in my prediction.
Well, you picking Baylor?
I picked them on. Look, here's the difference between me and most people, because I do a podcast where I've decided to make picks on a freaking Monday like an idiot. I have to make my picks on Monday. And I don't want to be one of these people who, unless there's massive information swings, flip-flop. So I picked Baylor on Monday. I had to, and I'm going to stick by it.
Well, it's dumb to make picks on a Monday.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know why.
I mean, you gotta fill the time. We do the show on Monday.
Well,
so
just don't do picks.
Yeah, people seem to like it. So,
well, Monday Spencer Sanders was playing, and now he's maybe not. I mean, we'll see.
I actually did pick Kansas on Monday because I thought Jalen Daniels would be back, and I was a little wishy-washy on Spencer Sanders. So that one, I'm not that worried about. So
RJ in Little Rock, 501 area code. College football top four discussion. I don't think TCU should be in the top four. They have one of the worst defenses in the country, rated 60th or worse in every category. RJ in Little Rock. RJ, thank you very much for your text today on 365 Sports.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't think that they should necessarily be number 4. I think most of the argument is about the fact that they're going to be treated differently or already being treated differently as an unbeaten versus the other unbeatens. And you can already see how that's happening. We're actually citing the fact that they had to come from behind in some games. Like, when does that come into play? When it's convenient. That's the problem with the committee. They only say these random things like game control or in coming from behind against the opponent, or whatever, the body clocks. Y'all remember body clocks? Y'all remember they actually threw that out there once upon a time? They threw out freaking body clocks as a reason as to why a team was ranked above the other. They actually did that, and we took that. So game control, body clocks, I mean, whatever else you want to throw out there. Then the eye test. The eye test then comes into play when they really need to just say, like, well, this is just what we want to do, and this is our reason why. It's just our eye test. So that's the problem. It's not that TCU's not in the top 4. The problem is their reasoning is bupkit. Their reasoning is BS is what it is half the time for why they have it situated the way that they do. And then you look at the back end of the standings where they're very clearly propping up who they like at the front, and you can just kind of see how it's all coming together. But no, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to say and argue that, yeah, TCU's a top 4 team. I think they've got an argument for it. I don't think it's so clear-cut that they're not, necessarily capable of beating a Clemson or someone like that. But, yeah, I'm not going to argue for them, but I will argue against them not, being a part of that group for right now. Now, they may go get beat this weekend, and then we can just stop talking about it, and it won't be an issue. I think that's very likely. They don't go undefeated the rest of the way, although they don't have a ranked team left on the schedule. But, I guess Texas is – I guess it depends on where you look for Texas or what poll you're looking at for them. But outside of that, they have a pretty, on paper, easy path. I think Iowa State's their final game maybe, which you think they could outscore them. Baylor's going to be tough. That will be tough. but they've owned that series. They've owned the Texas series really too, more often than not. But yeah, I don't think they're going to go unbeaten, so I don't think it's going to matter in the long run, but it's more about the committee and their BS reasonings for why they do what they do and less about TCU being disrespected, in my opinion.
I can agree all the way across the board on that. And by the way, Robert, I think it was Robert on the text line or the chat room mentioning you guys are looking at it all wrong, or Paul Foster, that Gonzaga is not so much about being added because it's because of the possibility of who it could connect to if anything happens with the Pac-12. We mentioned Brigham Young's very tight, close 11 hours, and then maybe that also brings in whatever happens perhaps with an Arizona, although still far away, a team that is in the same time zone.
No, I don't think we're really missing anything with Gonzaga. I think that, that's I do believe I mentioned in passing, something along the lines of adding Arizona as well and whether that opens it up. And I think I had forgotten about BYU for like half a second maybe. Then it's like, oh, yeah, BYU's up there. So that just seems logical as like a built-in opponent right out the gates potentially. But, yeah, I mean, it could be a lot of different things. That's the thing. Like what – it is more than just bringing in a basketball program. What is it ultimately setting up? It's a chess move. And it's one that I think would really be – smart on the part of Brett Yormark, especially if, you go and you swoop in and the Pac-12 was wanting them and you take them away from the Pac-12. Like, that would be a little bit of pie-in-your-face moment for the old West Coast, wouldn't it? I mean, to have a team that's right there in their backyard, that's valuable, getting plucked away by the conference that you're battling with to – stay. And I don't even know really what they're battling over at this point because they're both surviving. Big 12's got a new TV deal. Pac-12, I think, will have one here at some point in the near future. So it's it's almost like an online battle at this stage, if anything. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons for why Gonzaga would be intriguing and certainly opening the door to the West Coast. Brett Yormark saying we want to be coast to coast. Well, Gonzaga would give you a coast. So, yeah, there's a lot of different reasons why it would be an interesting move.
You got to put the first piece of the puzzle in before you get the other ones around that piece. Also, coming up next, Max Olson, theathletic.com. RG3 around 420. Gabe Eichert, former Oklahoma All-American center at 5:05. This is 365 Sports. Pickup Outfitters. I'm going to go jump into here because I got some new information on them. They've got a sale going on, a Black Friday sale that Jay Arrett put together that is absolutely fantastic. Here is what you have. This is the 25th anniversary of Pickup Outfitters. Jay Arrett did not own them at the beginning, but he's been owner of them for quite a bit since that time. Right now, through Thanksgiving, purchase one item, get the second item of equal or lesser value at 25% off. Buy a bed cover, get a spray-in liner for 25% off. Buy a grill guard, get a running board at 25% off. It even works for multiple vehicles every time. Buy one, get 25% off. Get a grill guard again, get running boards at 25% off. Also, they're giving away $4,000 worth of prizes, including a $1,000 in truck accessories gift card, 12,000-pound winch, a set of 4 Fabtech Stealth shocks, a 12-volt fridge, cooler, a 1-month subscription to Netflix, and more. How about this? Multiple vehicles, and you get it for each one. Buy a toolbox for one truck and get a toolbox for the second truck at 25% off. Pickup Outfitters, happy birthday, 220 Lakeyard Drive, createacommotion.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
29 touchdown passes last year. This one's knocked up. Bowers tips it to himself, and he'll score. Touchdown, Georgia.
It's time for our weekly segment with Max Olson of The Athletic. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus. And best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Max Olson, theathletic.com. Robert Griffin III, right after Max, 365 Sports. Max, thanks for your time. If you're Chris Kleiman and Adrian Martinez is practicing and expected to be full health by Saturday, what do you do at quarterback against Texas?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's like you kind of want to go to that, like, that kind of chess match thinking here of like, what do you think Texas is least interested in seeing of those two, right? I mean, it's kind of a combination in some ways, because I think certainly what Adrian Martinez brings in the run game does really stress the defense. And, I think that the Texas linebacker play has been better this year, but certainly they're still susceptible to some big plays. So I think in a lot of ways, Martinez probably is a little bit more dangerous, but Will Howard just was so impressive against Oklahoma State. It's hard to bench a kid over that, right? So I think it's a really interesting decision for Chris Kleiman. And also either way, you wonder, like, kind of if either guy throws a pick, you throw the other one in, right? I think it's, in some ways, it's a good problem to have, but this is a big kind of fork in the road for K-State to figure out as they, not only need to win this game to stay in the Big 12 race, but as they pursue a Big 12 title, kind of what's the right guy to roll with here.
Max, what did you think of the committee's explanation about TCU's worthiness of where they are in the poll?
Oh, yeah. Was there a good explanation? Did you hear one?
No.
I mean, it's what I expected, and I understand. Like, if you're a TCU fan and you're still kind of burned about what happened in the past with the playoffs, and I understand the skepticism at this point, and they rank you probably where you feared they'd rank you. I think all you can do is keep playing with this house money. None of us expected TCU to be in this position in year one under Sonny Dykes, and if you keep winning, that's really all you can control. I think the problem for TCU, like, it's not necessarily so much a perception problem, although we'll see how it develops in the next few weeks. The problem really is just the likelihood that there's going to be some very good one-loss teams coming out of the SEC and the Big Ten. And if TCU loses a game here, which I think they probably will at some point, I think it's going to be really hard to go undefeated in the Big 12 this year. How do you kind of get respect compared to those super, loaded, talented teams? I think that's going to be the problem, is just who are you being compared against here at the end of this? So for now, I don't worry about the ranking too much, but not too surprising that the committee would value Alabama over TCU, even if that's something I don't agree with.
Georgia and Tennessee, Max, obviously a mega showdown here. Looks like, depending on, Vegas, they've got Georgia as a pretty good favorite there, but I know there's more that goes into it than just that. There's a lot of interesting angles. Where are you looking as far as the dogs and the Vols go this weekend?
Yeah, I think that it's probably I think it's probably unlikely. I mean, it'd be so impressive, but it's probably unlikely that you're going to hold Tennessee under 30 points in this game. So I think it's going to be an interesting challenge for Stetson Bennett and this Georgia offense that is starting to kind of figure out who they like in the run game. And obviously Brock Bowers is exceptional. But you've been missing AD Mitchell, and it's going to be an interesting test. I think Tennessee's defense is probably a little bit underrated. And that's the test, I think, is just how does Georgia kind of keep up with them, and how do they get stops? I just think Hendon Hooker and the way that offense is designed, they're just so effective, and they're just so good at what they do. I mean, they just repped it a million times, and I think that this Georgia defense obviously is not as freaky talented as last year's team, but is still going to have some answers and some unique challenges for Hendon Hooker. I can't wait to watch it. As fun as Tennessee Alabama was, I think this game does have a chance to be even better in some ways, just in terms of the quality competition.
Yeah, Georgia's favored by 8 or 9 points in this game. Alabama by nearly 14 against LSU. So in Lubbock, did the teacher and Joey McGuire's got skins on the wall. I'm not trying to suggest he doesn't, but do you think the teacher was kind of better than the student in that game?
Yeah. I think that I'm sure that was an important one to Dave Aranda and Baylor in a bunch of ways. Not just some of the stuff that went on at the end of last season and the people who switched sides and all that stuff, but certainly Baylor needed that one for kind of their season and their trajectory here. So I thought that was an impressive response from that Baylor team for sure. And I think Texas Tech, on their best days, I think they're really dangerous. But, really, Baylor, to their credit, did not let that be one of Texas Tech's best days by any means.
Max, TCU takes on Tech this week. Do you think that is in any way a trap game for TCU in that they're rolling along well? Tech just got it kind of handed to them and might be hungry for more. Of course, we don't know what they're going to do at quarterback if they roll out 3 guys again. But even still, this is not a bad Tech team like they looked last week.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think I've kind of had these last 2 circled for TCU. Is just really curious to see how they respond to games that you might easily write off as wins if you're just looking at the calendar. But certainly that wasn't the case last week in Morgantown. They got all they could handle from West Virginia, a team that you could talk about as being one of the worst in the Big 12, but clearly they could hang with TCU, and that's just kind of a testament to the parity in this conference. And I feel the same way about this Texas Tech game. I mean, I like TCU to win it, but certainly we saw from Texas Tech earlier this season when they went to Stillwater, they were not nervous at all in that game and gave, Oklahoma State a hell of a fight in that one. So, yeah, I think that, if you make some mistakes and Texas Tech kind of gets to play the game they want to play, you're going to be in some trouble. And that's the challenge here for Sonny Dykes and TCU as you head into November. It's just how do you sustain this level of excellent play? I mean, you've got to stay healthy, you've got to have some good breaks, but that's just the real challenge with still some tough games ahead of you. Is just can you keep playing like this week to week, and can you keep making the right plays here in the fourth quarter in a games that get close?
Speaking of parity, K-State gets that big win over Oklahoma State and then turn right around and are dogs at home to Texas, who's coming off of a bye week. Just kind of wild, but, intriguing matchup here. Obviously, there's the Adrian Martinez and Will Howard situation that Chris Kleiman's probably going to keep close to the vest, but what do you make of the Wildcats and the Longhorns?
Yeah, I think the bye week came at a good time for Texas to get healthy. That was such a draining game that they played in Stillwater against Oklahoma State, a game that they, had opportunities to win and really just did not play very well in the second half, and especially the quarterback play. And so it's going to be a fascinating moment here for Quinn Ewers in his continued progression and growth of just how does he take a performance like that, the worst of his career by far, and kind of take those 2 weeks to build and get better and come up with a plan that can defeat a K-State defense that I feel like it really is playing at a top 25 level. That's going to throw a lot at you. And they're, as a defense, they're far more than just what, Felix Anadike-Uzomah can do as a pass rusher. I think that it's a really pretty talented group. That was a very frustrating game for K-State last year when they went to Austin. I'm sure they want some revenge for that one. They really played really poorly in that game. And, this is a big one for Sark. And just for, like, if you look at Texas's schedule, and it's funny, you alluded to Texas being favored, which is interesting because obviously Vegas and, SP Plus and some of these metrics really like Texas. You look at the November calendar and like, you can't say that Texas can't make the Big 12 title game if they went out here. But this is the week when you've got to start that here, right? You've got to play some of your best football here against K-State if you want to be that team that's going to come in and kind of be the spoiler in the title race.
Max, one more thing. You have your stop rate. It's a great read. Anything on there or among the teams on there that kind of does jump out other than Iowa State being highly ranked with that particular metric, but they just can't win?
Yeah, it's amazing to me. It's week to week here, and Iowa State goes and plays Oklahoma last week and loses in a close game, and still, the Cyclones have had a top 10 defense in terms of just getting stops and getting off the field. And just have been kind of let down by an offense that just hasn't figured things out this year. Yeah, that unit is playing really well and gives them a chance every week. They just, to have this 5-game slide right now is pretty brutal for this program that you knew they had to reload a little bit. And they just haven't been good enough in the run game, in quarterback and all of that. So, they're an interesting team. And, right now the top 2 teams in stop rate are Michigan and Illinois, and they're going to play in a couple of weeks. I think that'll be a lot of fun to see. Illinois has been unbelievable under Ryan Walters, their DC, who I think will be a head coach here pretty soon. And Michigan, they're an interesting team in terms of the whole playoff debate and where you slot them right now. But defensively, they've been better than anyone at being really consistent and getting a lot of stops and playing great defense.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Max Olson, theathletic.com, Thursdays at 4. With us on 365 Sports. We'll break here and come back with Baylor Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, ESPN's Robert Griffin III. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for the life of your car, also for a great deal as well. Shout out to Donnie and the guys over there at Richard Carr for taking care of me when I needed them to a few months back. And I didn't buy my car there originally, but they still were the people that I counted on when I needed to. And I can vouch that they will take care of you when you need them to. The wait's over. Right now, Richard Carr's got trucks and SUVs on the lot. 2022 Sierras, Acadias, Terrains are on the lot, waiting for you to test drive today. Also have Cadillac XT4 and XT5 SUVs, but the inventory is going fast because the inventory has been very hit or miss over the last year or so. So while they have some cars and trucks available and on the lot, make sure you get on over there to take full advantage of that. Trucks are waiting for you to test drive. You've got cars, SUVs, etc., the full array. But maybe exactly what you're looking for is not out there on the lot. Get on their inbound vehicle list. You can order a car and basically get your placeholder cut in line to get that truck, SUV, or car when it does arrive due to slow in production, taking a little bit longer. Get on that list, and you will be first come, first serve. Or you can let the dealership help you design the exact truck or SUV you want, and Richard Carr will have GMC prioritize it for you. New trucks on the lot, dozens of quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock as well. All pre-owns go through a 172-point inspection with multiple lending options. Richard Carr says yes to loans when others say no. For 23 years in Central Texas, count on the dealership that's built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Wacoans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Make a winning drive to Genco and refinance your vehicle. Every loan can skip monthly payments for 90 days with rates as low as 3.75% APR for 48 months. Right now is the time to make a play. At Genco, we save you money by helping you pay less for your car. Every loan scores no payments for 90 days. Then have a chance to win 3 more months of no payments. Apply online today for an additional discount of 0.15% off our already low rates. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Did you know Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is open to the public? Next time you're in town for a Baylor athletic event or you're in town for tourism, take advantage of their day passes for $10 a piece or the weekend for $30. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes, including indoor cycling and yoga, boot camp, and bar. New free weights, weight machines, TRX rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines, and a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alec Botch, where you will be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, kids club, 16 tennis courts, and 8 pickleball courts, and youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons available. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit wacotennis.com or visit them next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
All right, here we go, and it is always fantastic when we get a chance to talk to Robert Griffin III, Baylor Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, and right now a rock star on ESPN with what he does and a friend of the show. Day one, Robert Griffin III was a part of what we did back in April of 2020. So, hey, man, how you been? And is it as busy being a broadcaster during the week getting ready for a game as it is a player?
Oh, man. First of all, thank you guys for having me on again. It's been a long time, too long if you ask me. So I appreciate you letting me come on here with you. And then as far as being busy, it is by far busier as a broadcaster. And I think I believe that because as a player, you have a routine. You're going to be up from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., 9 p.m. talking football, studying tape and doing all those different things. But as a broadcaster, you just don't know where your time is coming from, and you're preparing for one show while you're on another show, and then it's another show after that, and then you're having to travel to all different types of places around the country, and it's difficult. And it's very hard to manage that time with also spending time with the family. So it actually makes you have to be a better planner. Because for me, with a young family, 3 daughters, 7, 5, and 3, and my wife, with the 4th daughter on the way, I got to make sure that I'm doing everything possible to spend enough time with my family because I want to see them and be a part of their lives.
By the way, congratulations on that news as well on number 4. RG3 with us on 365 Sports.
Robert, you got to do UCF and Cincinnati last week, which I thought was one of the better games in the country, and had a great ending to it. UCF winning in the bounce house. What are your thoughts on those two teams, especially now that we know we're not going to have a non-Power 5 team in the playoff, but they're both coming to the Big 12 next year. Both look like they're in pretty good standing and on the come up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about 2 teams that are led by coaches in Luke Fickell at Cincinnati and Gus Malzahn at UCF that know how to win, have won at an extremely high level. And now they're going into the Big 12. And when you look at their teams, I thought that they by far looked like Big 12 teams. And I think that was the biggest thing for them is they know how they match up against the Group of 5. They know how they match up against the American Conference. How do they match up against the Big 12? And we all know, like, the myth out there is that Big 12 doesn't play any defense, and anyone who's still running with that narrative just hasn't been paying attention to what's happened in the Big 12 over the last 5 to 7 years. So both these teams have a unique style of defense, I will say. Cincinnati has been one of the top defenses in the country over the years with Luke Fickell, and UCF, believe it or not, has also been one of those teams, and they like to blitz the quarterback a lot, and we saw that in the game. It was a very interesting game. Of course, John Rice Plumlee went out to the starting quarterback for UCF early in the game, but Mikey Keene came in late and led them to victory to knock off a team in Cincinnati that most people would say is the most dominant force for the Group of 5 schools. So I'm excited for them to join the Big 12. I know the Big 12 is clearly excited to bring in some more winning programs, and it's going to be interesting. Because one thing I know, I was recruited by Gus Malzahn when he was at Tulsa as the offensive coordinator in 2007, 2008. And this man almost got me to go to Tulsa. So now you're telling me that he's equipped with a Central Florida team that is going to be joining a Power 5 conference. It's only going to increase his ability to recruit and bring in talent to a school that is in the city that has no NFL team. And they are Orlando's football team. So there's a lot of growth potential there for them, and I think that's really great news for the Big 12.
Robert, how much familiarity do you get when you watch Tennessee's offense?
Come on, guys. You know that's our offense.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. To see what they're doing, not only just from a tempo standpoint, but how they stress the defense, throwing the deep ball. Hendon Hooker, I know a lot of people talk about his age, but you can't blame him for COVID and for everything that's happened. And he's playing in college still, and he's playing at a high level. I watched them throw the ball vertically. As Coach always told us, the only way to score is to try to score. The only way to try to put up points is to try to put up points. And that's what Tennessee does at an extremely high level. They throw the vertical ball. They run the football. Hendon Hooker runs just enough to keep a defense off balance and have them guessing about what's going to happen next. So I've been head over heels watching this team because, we have 2 coaches from our staff, really 3 coaches from our staff when I was at Baylor that have run successful offenses all around the country with Dino Babers at Syracuse, and then, of course, Kendall Browse as offensive coordinator at Arkansas, and Jeff Lebby as the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. I think those guys have been deserving and have earned the ability to go be head coaches. Of course, Dino's been a head coach for some time now. But Kendall and Lebby, when you see what Heupel's been able to do at Tennessee, I think that gives other people confidence that, hey, this offense can be run at an extremely high level in the SEC or any conference around the country. And I thought the big thing for Tennessee last week going against Kentucky was their defense showed up. It wasn't a 44-41 game similar to what they did against Alabama. And if their defense shows up like that for the rest of the year, they're going to really be the favorite to win the national championship.
You ran the Baylor line, of course, when you were in Waco. You had the tunnel walk or what it was onto the field or on the way to the field at Ann Arbor and the big house. And then you ran at UCF, I think, right into the water. Was that the most fun of all of them?
I would say the run at Baylor with the Baylor line was the most memorable just because I was able to do that for the first time in my alma mater and also did it with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably the most memorable. The most nostalgic was the big house because I'd never been. And growing up as a youngster, I watched Charles Woodson, Desmond Howard, and all those guys compete there. So to be able to walk down that tunnel and have that moment with the team was really, really cool. And that got a lot of traction on social media amongst other places. But this one with the Spirit Splash, I mean, guys, there was no other experience like that. I mean, the students were nuts. I face planted, running through the fountain. It was beyond fun. And then I lost my wedding ring during the process of running through the fountain. So I'm sitting there like, man, like I got this great moment on camera with the students at UCF. No one's ever done this before. This is really cool. It's awesome. And my marriage is over because I lost my wedding ring. So the fact that I was able to find the ring, not me, but one of the students found the ring after we were looking for it for like 35 minutes, just made it all come full circle and kept my marriage alive. My wife was in the fountain, with the dress on, barefoot, pregnant. So that's how hard we were looking for that ring and how much it meant. So, listen, it's all fun and games until you lose your wedding ring. I just ask any married man.
Did you get it back?
Yes, I have it.
Okay.
It's on my finger right now. I just looked at it to make sure it was still there.
That's good.
But that run was extremely fun. It's one of the most exciting things that homecoming traditions that around the country. And the bounce house is notorious for the stadium bouncing. And we got to experience that being there. And if you guys notice, like, you haven't said, hey, you did something every single week. We just pick and choose, like, which ones we think are worth that time to go out there and get done. I think more colleges are going to start pointing that out and saying, hey, we want you to come do this. And I think that's just bringing more attention to the college football game. And that's what we're supposed to do. It's not just supposed to be about the game. College football isn't just about the game. It's about everything going on around the game.
Did you pick up enough from being in the Michigan tunnel to have a different opinion on what we saw with Michigan and Michigan State and that whole tunnel fracas that occurred?
Yeah, I mean, to be down there for the first time and see how tight quarters it is, and you got two teams coming down the same tunnel. When it comes to Michigan State, like, if you don't have the opinion that was completely uncalled for, out of hand, unsportsmanlike, then I think you're looking at the wrong thing. If you want to go out and dominate your opponent, dominate them on the football field. If you want to go out and essentially jump your opponent, then jump them on the football field with your play. After the game is over, that stuff all has to subside. I understand the rivalries and I understand the disappointment from going out and not winning a football game. But at the end of the day, you can't use a helmet as a weapon or go out there and have 4 or 5 guys jumping multiple players from the opposing team. I said this before earlier in the week. I thought it set college football back. It's just a horrible visual. And just think about those kids' parents and what they're thinking about in that moment when they see their kids getting assaulted in the way that they were. Now, I don't know what's going to come about that, but yeah, the tunnel is extremely tight quarters. I don't think that Michigan's going to change that at all. Maybe they should just, when the teams leave the field, have one team go at a time. I mean, that's about all you can do. They're not going to widen that tunnel because it's such a prestigious thing. As you talked about with the walk coming down in Ann Arbor earlier in the year, I could feel that. You can feel the history in that tunnel.
Robert, you have A&M in Florida this week, and those are two teams whose seasons, I don't know, Florida might have gone about how you think with a new coach and all the things that they have to do, but A&M was thinking about hearing their name called in those CFP rankings, and that is not going to happen at all this year. How would you fix what's going on at A&M?
Ooh, man, that is a great question. And based off my prep, like the number one thing they have to figure out is the quarterback spot. Right, they've had Haynes King, Mac Johnson, and now they got Connor Wigman out there, slinging the ball around at the quarterback spot. They're extremely young. So I look at their schedule and I look at the games that they've lost. They've lost a lot of close games, and that's football, especially football in the SEC. And don't get me wrong, I'm a believer that the Big 12 and all of the other conferences can compete with the SEC top to bottom. But when you're Texas A&M and you're expected to play for a national championship and you've lost 3-4 games by less than 10 points, that's tough. That's tough sledding in any conference. So if they figure out the quarterback spot, this experience for these players, everyone's talking about how they're 5 stars and all the NIL money. This is a great experience for these young players to go through, to understand that it doesn't matter how much money you're given, you still got to go out on the football field and perform at the highest level. And when you are given that money, there are high expectations. So you talk about a coach in Jimbo Fisher who's won a national title, and they're talking about, hey, Jimbo's seat is hot. And is some of that premature? Yeah, it's premature. But when you bring in a coach, you pay him that much money, and you bring in all these 5-star athletes and you pay him that much money, there's going to be high expectations, and every college football fan base has high expectations. And right now, A&M at 3-5 is not living up to that. And if they don't start winning, it's only going to get worse.
Robert, have you had a chance with all the stuff you're doing on the weekend and games yourself to watch Baylor at all?
Yes, come on, guys. Listen, we find the time. We make sure that we're locked in. If I call a Baylor game, I take a lot of I don't know what the right word is, but try to take the most professional approach I possibly can and take pride in the fact that I can call the game honest. Last year, we called the BYU game and the Oklahoma State game and got that feedback from not only the fans, but also ESPN that was able to, not be a quote unquote homer. So when I'm not calling the games, I'm a fan. Listen, this is my alma mater. I love the university. I love Baylor Nation. And I'm paid attention to what's going on and, looking forward to seeing, how they go out and try to dominate Oklahoma.
Well, they obviously seem to maybe turn the corner with what they did in Lubbock, and the defense was flying around like a bunch of fire ants and beat up Texas Tech. And now in Norman. And ought to be interesting, of course, anytime I think about Oklahoma, even though it was home, is your throw to Terrence Williams in the dramatic win that maybe won you the Heisman Trophy and built a brand new stadium.
Yeah, the Oklahoma fans don't love that story. Of course, we know that. And but that was a special game, a special moment that took a lot of different people to make happen. Like even before that game against Oklahoma, when we were on the road in Lawrence, Kansas, and we were down 17 in, I think, the fourth quarter. People don't remember that game, but we do. All the guys on that team do, because if we didn't win that football game, there was no Heisman. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we were able to come back, Kevin Reese had a great game, helping get us back on track to set up that moment weeks later against Oklahoma with T-Dub, who just does what T-Dub would do, right? He was a quarterback's best friend. I scrambled out of the pocket. He broke his route off. I saw what he did and threw the football. The rest was history. And, he might have been a little dramatic at the end when he kind of like rolled out of the back of the end zone like he was hurting, but that was T-Dub for you. And that moment will always be etched in the history books. It'll always be etched in all of our minds. And Oklahoma fans have given me a tough time when I called the game just because of plays like that. But right now they're fighting for their lives. Brent Venables, 5-3 at Oklahoma is like, pigs are flying, in their opinion. If they see 3 losses ever, they're upset. And I know that Coach Aranda is upset right now. He's not happy. He's looking at the positive side of being 5-3 when the expectations coming into the year were to go repeat as Big 12 champions. And I think the adversity that Baylor has gone through this season actually shows you just how great of a coach David Aranda is. Because a lot of coaches would fold in that situation, knowing what the expectations are, knowing that they're not going to achieve that part of it, but still getting their players and their team to play hard and get better throughout the season. I've also enjoyed watching Blake Shapen, recover from that BYU game where it seemed like the team and the coaches didn't trust him throwing the football when that was the main reason they picked him as a starter over Gary Bohannon. So I've enjoyed watching him come out and sling the rock around and have fun out there.
Robert, I saw your tweet yesterday about buying a minority stake in the Washington Commanders and bringing some fans along with you. I ask that on behalf of my 3 friends here, both the Smokes and our producer Garrett, who are erstwhile Washington fans, what is your vetting process for that?
So, guys, the vetting process for the 10 fans hasn't even started yet because of course, to get in, you have to have the right relationship and have the right meeting with who the eventual buyer of the team is going to be. And that's all, assuming or hoping or praying that Dan Snyder sells in general. Right now, they've just hired Bank of America to do an evaluation of the team. So yesterday was a really wild day. I know if you follow me on Twitter, we got $100 million offer to be a part of the minority ownership group. And now today, now we're up to $400 million in funds and offers to be a part of that minority ownership group. So it's a real thing. I'm excited about it. Dan's obviously got to sell the team, and then I've got to have the right conversation with whoever decides to put in bids to own the team. But I think any of them would probably take us seriously with $400 million at our disposal. Just a whirlwind of information and calls and conversations from yesterday. Really exciting for me because, as you guys know, I was drafted by the Commanders, different name back then, but to the Washington Commanders now, and didn't really get to bring a championship to the city that I had hoped that I would be able to do. And to be a part of an ownership group that kind of can bring it full circle and try to provide a winner for the fans in D.C. is something that would be a dream come true for me. So all this happening has just really blown my mind over the past 24 hours.
Did what you saw happen after you left and even when you were there break your heart in some ways?
Yeah, anytime you get drafted somewhere, for me, it was multiple things. One, I wasn't a Washington Commanders fan growing up. I was a Bronco fan. People would be like, oh, why weren't you a Cowboy fan? Well, the Cowboys weren't really all that great when I was growing up. The Broncos were in the late 90s. So I kind of latched onto them. And who was the coach of the Broncos? Mike Shanahan. Mm-hmm. So I get drafted by the Washington Commanders, and the head coach is Mike Shanahan, and I think I'm going to heaven. Right? This is my dream come true. And it ended up not being that way. So that was part of the heartbreak. And I had to figure out, do I still love football? Do I want to do this? And I found that love again and was able to stretch my career out to be an 8-year career. And then to see the stories that came out afterwards of things that were happening before I was there and then after I left, it's heartbreaking because, you want to be a good person. You want to be associated with good people. And it was just tough to see some of the people that I knew inside the building that were going through some tough times and some tough things with the organization. So to be a part of a new ownership group that can come in and kind of have a clean slate and give the fans what they deserve, that would be something that would, like I said, just make it all come full circle. And be a good thing for the city. It
used to be such an incredible family when Jack Kent Cooke owned it. And, of course, the Joe Gibbs and so many things. It has been hard. It has really been hard for someone like me who only just happened to live there for when I was a kid and grew up as a Washington fan. Always will be, but it is so tough. Robert, my last question for you from me, and I appreciate your time today. When you look, and you've been all over the place, you've seen every I think Oregon State. Now you saw UCF, Cincinnati, Michigan. You see everybody. Is there too much pigeonholing certain conferences as being better than others, even though some might be deeper, might have elite teams compared to others? But is it all pretty much the same?
Listen, you guys know me. You guys know me better than, most people probably do. And I've always prided myself in being honest and forthcoming.
Yep.
And the bottom line is, when you guys see me do rankings, whether it's the Heisman, top fives, or teams to watch, I don't ever do that based off of what fan base is going to engage the most. I don't care about that.
Amen.
If a post I do doesn't do well because the fan base that the post is about isn't that engaging on social media, it is what it is. So when I do my rankings, I do them based off of who I think the best teams are or who I think should get in. I don't think that 3 SEC teams should get in to the college football playoff when it's only 4 teams. That's not a college football playoff. That's an SEC championship tournament. I don't think that 2 teams from the SEC and 2 teams from the Big Ten should get in. Now, there's a lot of reasons that I think that, because if a team like TCU goes undefeated, they should be in the college football playoff. If a team like Clemson, who I don't think is one of the better teams in the country, but if they go undefeated and there's a 1-loss Big Ten or 1-loss SEC school, I think the Clemson should be in the college football playoff. So to answer your question, yes, I do think there's too much pigeonholing because of the strength of a conference. I do think there's too much pigeonholing because a team might bring more money and more visibility because of their brand. I believe that. Every single year, the University of Texas is ranked. It doesn't matter what their record was the year before. They get ranked. And you know why they get ranked? They get ranked because of the power that they have and because of the exposure that they can bring. Now, I do think that Texas is going to be better over the next 3 or 4 years with Sarkisian and obviously Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning coming in. I think they have players, and what I saw when we called the game for them against Iowa State was impressive. So it's not to talk bad about them in any way, shape, or form. But the bottom line is we got to stop acting like one conference is better than the other. Any team from any of the Power 5 conferences, in my opinion, at the top, can beat any team at the top any day of the week. It just matters of how the ball drops. Look at what Tennessee's done this season. USC in the Pac-12 coming over with about 75 transfers, right? That's transfer U, and they've got 1 loss on the year and looking to punch their ticket to the college football playoff. So I think we got to stop having these thoughts of like this team is the best team because of their name, their logo, and who their head coach is, and start actually looking at what these teams are doing and how they're playing out year to year. So that's the answer I got for you.
Robert Griffin III, great to have you on the show. Always appreciate it. Continued luck with what you're doing, the broadcast, and we appreciate your loyalty to what we do as well. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys. God bless.
Robert Griffin III, ESPN broadcaster. He's got A&M in Florida this week. He's had games throughout the country. He told me when he walked down the tunnel. And Craig, that's a great question about what happened with Michigan and Michigan State. He walked down that tunnel. You could feel it happening. Ran into the water at UCF and, of course, the line with Baylor. And also, he does get engaged. He does get involved with the fan bases or whatever the traditions might be at each location. I loved how he answered almost everything he said, and that's kind of what you get from him.
Yeah, and, good to hear him kind of chuckle there of the question about Tennessee's offense. Like, that's our offense. That's the Baylor Browns offense. And, I mean, it's clear Heupel's put some tweaks on it, but that's what it is. Let's not try and kid ourselves. I've seen some Tennessee fans try to hijack that, but no, we're not going to allow that to happen. Heupel's done a great job with it, though, and, just had to ask RG3 about that. But, yeah, I'm with him, too, and, he's in a spot where he's RG3, and he's on a national network, and he can afford to probably not have to worry too much about engagement, but if he really wanted to, he could. So I like that he got into the whole thing about, not pandering, because that's what I say on here, constantly. It's like, if we wanted to jump on here and just talk Bama, Tennessee for 24 hours because we know that's going to grab the most viewers, we could do that. And a lot of people in our industry do that, but I'm just never, I want to talk about it, but I'm not going to, force it because that's the biggest fan base. And I know that's the opposite way of doing good business. And that's not going to make me a millionaire down the line, talking about the same 5 schools probably would. But I'd rather be authentic than be, just pumping up numbers all the time and talking about the same 5 schools or 10 schools because they have 1 million more followers on Twitter than K-State does. No, give me some K-State talk than having to force the big brand down everybody's throat over and over again. So I'm glad that he said it the way that he said it. And, to those who do, like, kudos. I couldn't do that, man.
But look, too, where sports media coverage, especially in the big boys, has kind of lost its way is because they have the yap shows and the, 2 guys yelling at each other shows that are very social media driven because it's like social media in real life. I mean, if you want to know what First Take is, it's Twitter is a sentient being. That's all that it is. So because of that, they start to tend to chase, like, everybody's talking about this on social media. Well, but is it the best thing? Because sports fans will watch whatever the best thing is. And if the best thing happens to be Kansas State versus Texas this week, then if you talk about it, they'll still be engaged. You don't have to tell them that you should be talking about this because a bunch of people are. And the misnomer about social media is that while there's millions upon millions of people on it, it's not as many people as you think. In the grand
certainly
scheme
not
of
Twitter.
Your viewers. Yeah.
Certainly not Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, maybe if you're talking Instagram or TikTok or something, then yeah, you've got millions and millions. But yeah, Twitter's not exactly the pulse at all times. Like it seems like it is when you're in it. It seems like it's the voice, right? But that's when you're in it. And I like Twitter. It's fine. But yeah, sometimes I do feel like people get lost in that world and think that that's really the reality of what's going on. It's like, no, this is just Twitter. This is Twitter world. Things are a little bit different here. So yeah, I mean, and I get it. Like I said, Ohio State, huge fan engagement, Texas, huge fan engagement, and we'll talk about them. But I also want to talk about Iowa State's struggles. And I know that might not be interesting to 90% of the people out there, but it is to me. So as long as I'm talking on a microphone, then I'm going to make sure that we're talking about stuff that's interesting to us too, and not just what's going to get the most views on a video. And I'm never going to be clickbait. Like, just refuse.
It must work with 25,600 of you who have subscribed, a lot of you who are watching right now, and a ton of you who are part of the chat room. And thank you as well for those on the text line and those who just say hi whenever you see us out and about, or also through other ways on social media. This is 365 Sports. We'll have Off the Radar, and that is next. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans. I was there the other day. I probably have been by there more often the last, 6 weeks or so than I had for a while. I go by there, and Ashley will send me an email or call me and say, hey, by the way, we have some product for you to come by and pick up, as they have a new cigar or a new flavor or a new brand that is kind of the hot one. And I'll go by there and pick one up. And not like I'm a cigar aficionado, but I do know what I like, what smoke I like, the Churchill length, what particular brands I like, and the smooth type flavor that I like as well. And she knows that too, as does Cheyenne and Carol. They have a 48-foot walk-in humidor loaded up. You name a brand of cigar, and there's a list of like 50 or so on their website. They have it. The number one cigar from 1964, it's that Padron. They have that too. And they also have coffee beans. They'll grind them for you, fresh coffee beans, or you could take them home and do it yourself. They have CBD products like Vita Dreams, a gummy. You take that when maybe 30 minutes to an hour or so before you're ready to go to bed, and it seems like you do fall asleep so much more peaceful and relaxed, and you get that extra 30 minutes or an hour of sleep. It's Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
I'm going to tell you a tale of 2 companies founded 25 years ago. The first, Pickup Outfitters, started as a little shop on Lake Erie Drive by a local company selling the truck bumpers they were making in Waco. Then, 6 years ago, new ownership took up the cause of battling vehicle nudity, vowing to fight until there were no more naked trucks in Central Texas. And so far, they estimate they've outfitted more than 40,000 trucks at Pickup Outfitters. Now, the second company's story is not as impressive. They too started 25 years ago, but didn't have the vision of Pickup Outfitters, and to date, they have not outfitted one single naked truck in 25 years. So we'll celebrate the 25th anniversary of Pickup Outfitters with money-saving specials and valuable prizes. The second company will support them too by giving away 25 one-month subscriptions to their online service called Netflix. Save and win the Pickup Outfitters 25th anniversary celebration through Thanksgiving. Details online at createacommotion.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
All right, welcome in Off the Radar, 365 Sports, taking a look at some stories, as we do on Tuesdays and Thursdays around 4:45 that aren't necessarily the normal discussions, although college football, when necessary or when it piques my interest, will have a story or two in this segment, but mostly going to take a look at what's going on outside the rest of the sports world. And by far the biggest story in sports yesterday was a World Series no-hitter. The Houston Astros combining to throw only the second no-hitter in World Series history, the first time since Don Larson back in 1956 tossed a complete perfect game. It's 118 years, mind you, that this has been played, the World Series. And so Larson back in 56, and then a group of Astros all combining to be able to come together and get it done last night in a 5-0 victory that tied this best-of-7 series now at 2 apiece. Christian Javier, who had Javier had 6 innings to get things started, struck out 9 batters, had 2 walks, so unable to get the perfect game, but threw nearly 100 pitches, and then, you take a guy out, and it's like, oh my gosh, no-hitter, you're playing with perfection and all those things, and Brian Abreu comes in, does his thing, Rafael Montero comes in and does his thing, both pitching a perfect inning, and then, sure enough, Ryan Presley gets it done in the 9th inning, and the Phillies get no hit in the World Series, the second time ever, first time since '56, as I mentioned, and it happens at home right after, a massive win for them, and during a series where their crowd's getting lauded for being just incredible. Every time that we see them, they were hitting the exits last night. And I think, actually, the Phillies fans that left early, what are you doing? I mean, I know that's your team or whatever, but, that's World Series freaking history. Stay to watch the no-hitter, but, I mean, I can kind of see it. But still, that's some history, man. Yeah. So, yeah, World Series no-hitter.
You're trying to ask Phillies fans to rationalize anything?
I know, yeah.
But it's history. Does it count the same?
I think so. I mean, not if it's one person, but even so, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. Don Larson he stands alone. If I were any of the Phillies, especially the hitting coach Kevin Long, I would have been like, "You guys are embarrassing me in front of Bruce Springsteen. This is not right." But it was an unbelievable performance by the Astros. They were really just dealing last night. I wonder for tonight for Justin Verlander. Right? So if you're Justin Verlander, you had a rough start the first time out. You tried out there this time, probably be better around, but your guys in front of you just threw a no-hitter, so now Philly's going to be extra locked in to try to get at you again. So I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty interesting storyline for tonight in Philly.
Yeah, I mean, Astros scored, they had a 5 spot when Javier left, and that was all scored in 1 inning. So there's a little bit of that explosion, and they just carried it on the way through. And
they do it by just a single, a double, a walk, and they just grind you into the dirt with it all.
Dusty Baker said that he was, just thinking about health when he decided to, go with different pitchers and not worry so much about the no-hitter. And, hey, it paid off in the end. I mean, I'm sure had he made a pitching change and then, they don't get it and they give up a couple hits, then people would question, why would you, you shouldn't have taken, taking him out and all that. But, hey, 4 guys combined for a no-hitter. And, again, the first no-hitter since the perfect game by Don Larson in 1956. So very, very cool accomplishment by the Astros. And, kind of a pushback on their part. They take a lot of crap, and rightfully so. I mean, they did some of that to themselves, no doubt about that. But a nice response, if anything, being down 2-1 and then go no-hit the Phillies at their place. Pretty amazing. So now that series is tied at 2 games apiece. And tonight you'll have game number 5 starting just after 7 o'clock Central Time on Fox. Game 5, Phillies and Astros. And as Paul mentioned, it'll be Justin Verlander on the mound for Houston and Noah Syndergaard on the mound for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I like Syndergaard a lot. I think it's a good pitching matchup. I hope it's a great pitching matchup. I actually prefer to see that in the postseason.
This has been kind of like each team kind of getting a gap, and then
they get their moment, and then it's over. Yeah, I don't know. It's so far. Look, it's going at least 6 games, so it's going back to Houston. So we know that, and yeah, so it's been a good series, and that's really, especially as someone who doesn't care about either team, that's what you want. That's what baseball wants for the viewers. It's been a good series. I think it's done a pretty good job of showcasing at least the one super megastar that's in this thing in Bryce Harper. I think Jose Altuve should be in his category as well, although he doesn't have some of the glory stats that Harper has. But you've got stars all over this thing and really good players and young guys for the future. So I think they've done a good job, but baseball kind of has a hard time selling itself. So.
Well, it sold itself to over 12 million people, at least across most of their major networks last night. 11.8 million, up 10% or close to 10% from last year, up 23% from 2 years ago, which 2 years ago, I mean, that's always going to have an asterisk next to it because that's COVID year, you know what I mean? And it's just kind of wonky how everything worked back then. I don't really know how to compare much to that era because – were there more people watching because we were all at home, or were there, I don't know, but up 23% from 2 years ago. So clearly more people are watching now, and across Fox and Fox Deportes and Fox Sports had over 12 million viewers for the World Series. So it seems like pretty healthy numbers. But again, Game 5 tonight, that series tied at 2 apiece. And, looking forward to seeing Verlander versus Syndergaard. By the way, I saw John McClain. I know he doesn't apparently read his mentions on Twitter. At least that's what he said before. But he did have kind of odd timing. I don't know if Justin Verlander's going to be here next year. And it's like they just threw a no-hitter in the freaking World Series. Like, who cares about Justin Verlander and where he's going to be playing next year? I love John, but I can agree with some people. They're like, not now. Not now. But speaking of John as well, his boss, Mattress Mac. Y'all see him getting into it on the streets?
Hey, I like him, man.
Hey, look, if you're in Philly, you got to fight fire with fire, man.
Yeah, Mattress Mac, the famed Houston furniture owner who's known for, I guess, nationally probably placing big bets, although you kind of pull back the curtain, you're like, oh, he's hedging all of this. And so he's not really as in danger of losing gobs of money as you think that he is, which is smart and what you can do when you have a lot of money to play around with. But, yeah, he got into a little tiff on the streets of Philadelphia, and even at his age, which I'm not exactly sure what it is at this point, but he's up there. He's fiery and was throwing some venom back at some Philadelphia Phillies fans. So, yeah, Google Mattress Mac, and you can see him getting into it and definitely not backing down from the Philly trash talk.
That reminded me of a couple of bad nights on 6th Street right there.
Yeah, well, he was about it. That's for sure. So good for Mattress Mac. Elsewhere tonight, it is a very strange night in Philadelphia because not only is there a World Series, but there's also an NFL game. Thursday night, NFL Prime broadcast, the Eagles and the Texans. One thing that we do know about this game is that Brandon Cooks will not be playing for the Texans. He was not moved before the trade deadline, and as a result, according to Ed Werder, he's not going to be playing on Thursday Night Football. They didn't meet his trade demands, but he's obviously frustrated, and they just weren't able to swing a deal, but he's not going to be suiting up for Houston.
They had him listed as questionable all week, which I thought, oh, he have an injury? No, I mean, he's well, yeah, he does. He's butthurt. But but look, Brandon Cooks has had such an interesting career. He's been traded all over the league. He was with the Rams, I think, 2 different times, or the Saints, whatever it was. So he's been traded a lot. The Saints, yeah. When he's been traded a lot, and I think he wanted to go to a place where he was going to be there, and then, of course, he goes there to play with Deshaun Watson. Of course, everything bad that happened with Deshaun Watson happened. Everything bad with the Texans has happened, and that has not lived up to it, so he wanted to be traded, but reports are saying that Houston wanted a second and a fourth in the team who traded for him to pay the full $18 million deal, which means to me they never really thought they were going to want to trade him.
Yep, so that will go into further discussions, and they'll decide to eventually move him, I'm sure, and figure all of that out. But it is very interesting to have a Philly-Houston night like this one. I mean, you really think about that. A World Series, Game 5 between the Phillies and Astros, and then you've got your 2 NFL teams also meeting up on the same night. It's crazy how that ended up working out when all was said and done, but very cool. And so fans of Philadelphia and Houston franchises, you got a busy and I'm sure some nerves going right now, but a very busy night ahead of you. So cool to see that. And again, that'll be the Amazon Prime broadcast coming up later on this evening. You mentioned it earlier, but just a refresher course tonight in college football. You got UTEP at Rice in a Battle of Texas schools, 6 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. Good one here, App State. Even though they faded a bit at Coastal Carolina, that ought to be entertaining, 6:30 on ESPN for that broadcast as well. And one more NFL note, after the kind of flurry of trade deadline stuff, the Dolphins quickly signing Bradley Chubb to a contract extension after getting him from the Broncos. Sign him through 2027, a 5-year extension worth $110 million, and can get slightly more than that through incentives per Adam Schefter. But he is now tied down with Miami for the next 6 years contractually. So they make the move, they get him, and then they make sure that he's going to be there for quite a while. So a new extension for Bradley Chubb, and those are a few things off the radar.
Thank you very much. There's a story I gave Craig. We don't have time for it, but maybe in the future about Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods are doing this virtual tour in which they're going to be a part of it. And the sponsorships that are supporting them are massive. Big boy companies. It's something that was on ESPN I believe, their main newsreel on the homepage about 2 or 3 days ago. All right, we've heard from Robert Griffin III, Max Olson, a lot of things college football. Coming up next, he was an All-American at Oklahoma. He's now a part of Sirius XM Radio. I did a show with both he and Teddy Lehman yesterday. He does a show with us today. Gabe Eichert, former Oklahoma All-American, is next on 365 Sports. Coming up, Veterans Day. Coming up is Discover Woodway and putting on an event for those, of course, who helped serve and, in some cases, of course, fight for our country. Veterans Breakfast is next week, November the 10th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., and you can, by going to discoverwoodway.com, reserve your seats. It's going to be at the Pavilion at the Arboretum. It's a fantastic place. It's a beautiful place to host any kind of event. I've mentioned that before, and the Veterans Breakfast will start at 9, end at 11, and it's free. Join the city of Woodway as they celebrate veterans with a complimentary breakfast, and seats are limited, so if you want to be there and you have somebody you know that served, a veteran of our country, then go to discoverwoodway.com for more information and reserve your seats. They're limited at the Pavilion at the Arboretum. It's November 10th from 9 to 11, the Veterans Breakfast, discoverwoodway.com.
The wait is over. Richard Carr GMC has the trucks. 2022 GMC Sierras have hit the lot and they're waiting for you. Sierra trucks offer best-in-class towing, strong steel beds, multi-pro tailgates, and advanced features that make driving a Sierra second to none. Trucks are waiting for you to test drive now. So call now, log in now, or get here now and drive your next truck today at Richard Carr.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online, pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Gabe Eichert was a consensus All-American, played a long career in the National Football League, and is now part of Sirius XM. Does a show with Teddy Lehman and other shows as well, and he joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Catalina, Craig, and David Smoak. Gabe, thank you for your time as always. So Oklahoma seems to have turned the corner. How much is the belief factor that they have?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Smokey. And I'm not sure if they've turned the corner per se, but they're definitely more confident than they were a couple weeks ago. And nothing creates confidence quite like winning football games. But just thinking about that game last weekend in Ames, Iowa against Iowa State, the defense, played as good as we've seen them play, now, albeit against a poor offense from the Cyclones, but that's as good as they've played since the Nebraska game. I mean, it's been a long time. So those guys experiencing a little success. We'll see if we end up looking back at that Iowa State performance as some type of turning point for Oklahoma's defense. And then offensively, they've been really close to being really good. And I actually thought that they played pretty efficiently offensively last weekend, but just some uncharacteristic drops from wide receivers kind of prevented them from having the type of day that I think that they could have had. And I will say, I do think Jeff Lebby has found a rhythm as a play caller for Oklahoma, and they're starting to do some really creative things offensively. So it's better than it was when they were sitting at 3-3, but there's still a lot of improvement for the Sooners, Smokey.
Gabe, the defense that we've heard is really hard to grasp. Do you think that last week, because they were able to play against an offense that doesn't throw as many things at them, they were able to grasp more of those concepts and will have more confidence going forward?
I think that Iowa State's got a very vanilla offense and an offensive line that is not playing at a very high level. So while I was pleased with the way that Oklahoma played defensively, forcing 3 turnovers is always a positive thing. I do think that Baylor is definitely going to be a much more difficult test for what Oklahoma's defense, especially with what Oklahoma's defense has struggled with. Iowa State they could not stress Oklahoma defensively when it comes to their run game. They just did not have they didn't have the offensive line play, and they don't have the backs. But now you see, with the veteran offensive line that Baylor's got, now that they've got Keith back at right tackle, it seems like things are coming together a little better in the emergence of Richard Reese. I think Oklahoma's defense, for the most part of the season, has really struggled to stop the run against good competition. And Baylor is going to test what has been the biggest weakness for Oklahoma's defense. So I guarantee you they're feeling better than they did about a month ago, but they full well know that Baylor's bringing a much more potent offensive attack than what they saw last week.
Gabe, as you pointed out, I mean, it's not just off to the races because they've won a couple games. I mean, it could be the start of something, but just in terms of the program, there's still a lot that's being worked on. As a first-year head coach, how have you seen Brent Venables kind of navigate this very roller coastery kind of ride that is the college football season where, a month ago you were the wrong guy for the job, a month later you're great. How have you seen him and knowing him, kind of just deal with all of that comes with this job?
Yeah, he's handled it well, right? And, no one handles losing well. If someone's okay with losing, well, then you're being coached by a loser. And that is certainly not Brent Venables, especially with the amount of success that he's had in his career at multiple stops. I think, that combination, the TCU game, the Texas game, I think those really affected Brent Venables. But one thing that he absolutely believes in is the process. And he believes in the process that they have in place there and the way that they're practicing, the way that they're going about their business. And he made it very clear they're not making any wholesale changes, right? They're going to continue to practice hard and practice physical. They just need to execute better on game day. And we've seen that. We've seen them play better these last couple weeks. But ultimately, I still think it is – it is a season that a lot can be accomplished for Oklahoma. And is it the type of season that we thought Brent Venables was going to have in year one? No. And he'd be the first one to tell you that. But there are still some things that this team can accomplish. Most notably, I've said this many times now, right? They're a 5-win football team right now. They've got 4 regular season games left, and they got a bowl game. The goal should be to win 10 games. Right? They got 5 games left. Hopefully the goal should be to win 10. I mean, this is Oklahoma football. Just because it got off to a rough start doesn't mean you just completely dismiss having lofty goals, right? So I think that Brent Venables is mostly focused on his players getting better and them showing that improvement and understanding his expectation when it comes to how to practice, how to play, but also how to handle everything off the field as well. So I think ultimately he's been really, really pleased with this team's buy-in, but he wants to continue to see improvement in between the lines on Saturdays, which is something we're all hoping to see these last few weeks of the season.
Gabe, you mentioned that it's still Oklahoma. The expectations are there, although it looked like, my goodness, this should become something that just goes off the rails. What is that? What does it say with the name on the chest of a jersey? Logos don't win games, but sometimes they sure can. But what does it say? What does that mean when you put that jersey on?
It means a lot. I mean, for me, it meant more than most. I mean, I'm born and raised in Oklahoma City. I went to every OU home game from when I was 5 to when, I was 15, whenever you started having to do stuff for high school football on Saturdays. So it was my life's dream to play football at Oklahoma. And luckily enough, I was able to live that out, which was extremely special. But yeah, and I think Baylor is, with the success that Baylor's had, under multiple head coaches, Baylor players probably understand it a little bit now. Like when you are the hunted, which I know Oklahoma's not that this year with how this season's gone, but when you've always had that target on your chest and on your back when you go out there on Saturday, there is a certain pressure that comes with that. And that's one of the things that these athletes, these players at programs like Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State, and, you know, with the recent success that Oklahoma's had, you put Oklahoma in that group, there's a certain expectation and a certain pressure that comes with that expectation. And Oklahoma's, I mean, they're experiencing it this year. When you fall short, everyone lets you know about it. And everyone, I'm not going to say people kind of bask in it, but, you know, with how Oklahoma's had this thing rolling for the last 2 decades, you know, no one's feeling bad for you.
No.
So when the expectation every single year is to win your conference title and go to a college football playoff, when you fall short, it sucks. It's not fun. It's not fun, but it is also, it's a privilege to play at a place where the expectations are as high as they are. So that's just part of the gig, man. I don't feel bad for any of these guys for Oklahoma this year. They're going through it a little bit, but I lived it, and it's, you know, it is a privilege to play at a place that has the amount of history that Oklahoma football has, and has the expectation that come with each season, you know, putting on the crimson and cream. So yeah, there's pressure. When you fall short, you come up short, it can be rough, because Oklahoma football, I mean, it means a lot to a lot of people around here. So yeah, but that's, you know, that it is what it is, man. I mean, you get to go to school for free. You get to play college football, one of the best programs in the country. I mean, if you struggle, no one's going to feel bad for you, Smokey.
No, you're right. In fact, you're right. That's one of those programs people like to see them lose. There's a handful of those around the country. Gabe Eicher, our guest right now on 365 Sports.
Gabe, do you think that 3-game losing streak in part was there's a lot of turnover that happens, and that is, even if you're happy with Brent Venables and all the guys coming in coaching wise, and then there was the Cale Gundy thing that happened, and then you have kind of that one bad moment starting in TCU that kind of grows over 3 games, because it does take human beings time to kind of process all the bad things happening, or bad things or change happening at once, that this was just a team kind of dealing with everything that's happened to it in less than a year?
I understand what you're saying, right? I get it. I mean, you think about what the program went through since last November, right? With Lincoln Riley leaving, a lot of players leaving, and it wasn't just the transfer portal. Like, obviously losing a guy like Caleb Williams, very significant. A guy like Mario Williams, very significant. But you also lost your 5 best players on the defensive side of the ball to the draft. You lost Kennedy Brooks, who I think is one of the more underrated players over the last decade at Oklahoma. I mean, you lost some key pieces to a team that, let's not forget, I mean, Oklahoma wasn't playing for the Big 12 title last year, right? And there are a lot of reasons why they weren't. And, you know, a lot of people like to point at Lincoln Riley and maybe what was going on and a lack of focus there. But I am not an excuses guy. I think that Oklahoma, there's no reason in my mind that Oklahoma should get embarrassed the way that they did against Texas. Right? And I get Dylan Gabriel was out, but I mean, you got talent. You're really well coached. Like you got to put a better performance on the field than that. I don't think, you know, TCU just, and a lot of people cite Dylan Gabriel getting hurt in that football game. They were down 34-10 when he got hurt. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's really, so I'm not an excuses person. Like, yeah, did the roster, was there some turnover? No doubt, but the talent was there. The talent is still there. The execution in that 3-game stretch was not. And I'm one of the people that I know a lot of people, when you drop games in a row like that, they blame the coach. I'm one of those guys that, hey, the game plan is what it is. It's up to the players to execute. And Oklahoma just didn't play well, especially defensively. Did not play well in that 3-game stretch. And honestly, they didn't play well defensively against Kansas either. But luckily, the offense was cooking that day, and they were able to get a win. But, yeah, to me, the execution, and I know that the new offensive system under Levy and the new defensive system under Venables are both complex, right? And it takes time to get really, really comfortable in a new system. I understand that. But ultimately, like people can want to make all the excuses. I just don't buy them, but that's just kind of me. I am one of those people like, hey, you step on that field with Sooners across your chest, you better play well. And that 3-game stretch, they did not play well.
Yeah, that was tough. That was tough to watch. There's no doubt about it. And Oklahoma was one of those that you don't rebuild, you reload. There's some factors that came into play, but yeah. Gabe, looking at Baylor last week, that doesn't encapsulate who they've been all year. That was probably their best performance, top to bottom. They've had a bunch of picks in the secondary, bunch of sacks, ran the ball really well, dominated the time of possession, just won in all the areas that you kind of need to win to win football games. Looking at Baylor, what concerns you most about what you see as far as a matchup for Oklahoma? And on the flip side of that, where do you see perhaps Oklahoma having a strength or a slight advantage over something that Baylor perhaps does?
Yeah, as far as what concerns me about Baylor for Oklahoma, I think it's the running game. I really do. I think when you look at how Oklahoma struggled defending the run against Kansas State and TCU and Texas and Kansas, like that, I know that, they had a get-right game against Iowa State last week, but Baylor's running game, and I want to make something very clear. Jeff Grimes' offense is my favorite offense in all of college football.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm an outside zone guy. I think the outside zone play, stretch, whatever you want, I think it's the best play in football. I think it's God's favorite play. That's just how I feel about what Grimes does offensively. I think he's fantastic. Oklahoma, they haven't really seen a team that runs stretch as efficiently as Baylor's running it coming into this game. And I think the variables that play creates for a defense, I think it's really hard to defend. And Oklahoma's had some serious struggles defending the run this year, and I think that Baylor's going to attack them. And if that offensive line can continue to show a little more progress for the Bears, then it could be a long day for Oklahoma when it comes to stopping the run. And you guys know, just like I do, if Baylor can run it efficiently, man, that offense can get cooking. With all the play action game, with the boot game that they build off of it. It'll be a long day for Oklahoma's defense if they can't shut down Richard Reese in that running game. So that certainly concerns me. And then as far as what I think Oklahoma can do to Baylor, I do think that Baylor's lack of a pass rush from their defensive front could lead to Dylan Gabriel having a big game throwing the football. And we saw Oklahoma really come out aggressively against Kansas, throwing it all over the place early in that football game. I think that Oklahoma's best chance offensively against that Baylor defense is to throw it around a little bit. I think they'll attack the edges with the run game, try to avoid Ika as much as possible there in the middle of that defense. But I do think if Baylor continues to struggle to generate a pass rush, and I know that they just had themselves a day against Tech, but Oklahoma's offensive line has done a good job for the most part in pass protection, especially Anton Harrison. He's been an absolutely lockdown pass protector at left tackle for Oklahoma. If they can give Dylan Gabriel time, I think that Oklahoma's got the talent at wide receiver to do some damage against Baylor's secondary, which I think has been a bit of a weak point for that defense. And it's not just pushing it down the field. I think that Baylor's secondary at times has struggled to tackle in open space. So if they could maybe get a little more of the intermediate passing game going, which has not been a big part of Oklahoma's offense, but I do think you combine the talent Oklahoma's got a wide receiver, and the fact that Baylor struggled to generate a consistent pass rush, I think Jeff Lebby could look at that and go, okay, let's maybe throw it around a little more, and they could do some damage through the air.
All right, so I got a question for you. You were a phenomenal tight end. I mean, really, really good at tight end. You were a part of all this with Oklahoma, this and that as a high school player. What are you mad at Stoops because he didn't ask you to play tight end?
Well, I did play tight end my first year.
Okay.
So, yeah, so my first year, my redshirt year, I would do – this was fun. You'll love this, Smokey. My days during the season consisted of being one-on-one. So Kevin Wilson was my tight end coach. Mm-hmm. And anyone that has heard Kevin Wilson's stories, he is a tough man to play for. Great coach, but man, really tough to play for. But we would do a bunch of like one-on-one stuff, tight ends. I'm talking like, hey, drive block and just go in individual with the tight ends. Like we were exhausted. And my redshirt year, my tight end partner was a guy named Jermaine Gresham, who ended up being a first-round pick. And when it wasn't Jermaine Gresham, my tight end one-on-one partner was a guy named Lane Johnson, who currently is playing at a pretty high level at offensive tackle for the old Philadelphia Eagles, arguably the best right tackle in football. I think Lane is the best right tackle. So those were my two individual partners at tight end. I would go one-on-one with Jermaine Gresham and then one-on-one with Lane Johnson. And then because, I went to OU to be a blocking tight end. That's what I was there for. I was there to be the next Brody Eldridge, the Big 12 diehards will remember that name.
Oh, yeah.
But I was blocking well as a scout team player. Like I was giving Jeremy Beal and Frank Alexander and those guys, I was giving them a really good look. Like I was winning some of those battles. And I was not a guy that took it easy in practice. I was there to get better. Well, one day, the first week of the season, Jackie Shipp, who was the defensive line coach, said, Gabe, I could get on in there in the interior, snap that foam football, and you're going to play scout team center. And I was like, I'm going to do what now? And he said, you're the only one that will block anybody. And I've removed some expletives from that quote. And he said, get in there and get Gerald a look. So my days, my freshman year, were blocking Jermaine Gresham and Lane Johnson in individual, and then I would jog over to scout team where I would block Gerald McCoy all practice. Oh, my Lord. So I didn't have very much fun my freshman year, guys.
Yeah.
But some of the toughness of the fight, whatever you want to say, that I showed in those scout team reps as we transitioned kind of to a more spread offense. Coach Stoops came to me during the spring when I was still playing tight end and said, hey, we think you could have a future at center. What do you think? And I said, Coach, they pay you a lot of money to make these decisions. I'll do whatever you want me to do. And that day I started snapping for the first time. And you guys want to take a guess? The first quarterback I snapped the football to?
Oh, gosh. Landry Jones.
You would think, because he was the starter at that time. The first quarterback I ever snapped the football to was Josh Heupel.
Oh,
I heard he's doing pretty big things these days.
I think he's doing well. Yeah.
Man, that's some great stuff.
And another story for another time when I join you guys, but I actually was supposed to move to tight end when I was with the Buffalo Bills, but there was a miscommunication between the offensive coordinator and the general manager. I was told that I was going to be the starting Y tight end, so basically the blocking tight end on a Saturday before walkthrough, and by the time I was walking off the field, I hadn't been cut. So there's a little miscommunication there, but there's some more details to that story that we can get into another time, boys.
Gabe, I do have to ask you real quick. One of our producers, Emery, you share an alma mater with him at McGinnis High School, and
hell yeah!
And he wants to know if this is the year they get over the championship hump and get into the playoffs.
I stay on top of McGinnis football. They seem to be excited about, what they can do this year, but man, I'm to the point where I'm just going to have to believe it. It's kind of like the Big 12 getting into the college football playoff, guys. It's like, I'm not going to pick a Big 12 team to win a national championship until I see them win that semifinal game and get over the hump. So as much as I love the Irish, I'm sorry, Emory. I don't see it happening for our boys.
So that was the nickname, the Irish?
Yeah, the Bishop McGinnis Fighting Irish.
And
Bishop McGinnis Catholic High School in Oklahoma City. Just imagine if you take everything Notre Dame does and you put it in a private school in the middle of Oklahoma City, Smokey. That's what we did.
So if you weren't a born and raised Oklahoma kid and Notre Dame apparently offered you, would that have been your dream?
Notre Dame, I was, and I've talked about this before, my final three were Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Stanford.
Wow.
My dad wanted me to go to Stanford. My mom wanted me to go to Notre Dame. I wanted to win football games. And so I went to Oklahoma. But if I wouldn't have gone to Oklahoma, and Oklahoma offered me late in the process, especially by today's standards, if I wouldn't have gone to Oklahoma, I would have gone to Notre Dame. And they actually wanted me to play defensive end. So who knows what that life path, where that would have taken me, boys. But, everything's worked out pretty good. So I got no regrets.
What a great segment, Gabe. Thank you, buddy. Great being on with you whenever I can with you and Teddy. And we love it. And we love you for being a part of this show. And great to talk to you. And good luck going forward with the talk show and much more. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. We'll see you Saturday.
Yes, sir. That's Gabe Eichert, Oklahoma, Sirius XM Radio with Teddy Lehman. Man, what a bunch of great stories from him on his career path and also his thoughts. A bunch of good breakdown on Baylor, Oklahoma, Saturday, 2 o'clock in Norman. Our pregame will be at 12 here from the studio, 12 until 1:30 on the CW channel. Jennifer Smoak is next.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, No one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Looking for a great job with great pay and awesome benefits? Genco FCU is hiring. As a longtime Waco employer, Genco focuses on what matters most in our employees' lives, like pay incentives, bonuses, benefits, 401k plans, paid time off, advancement opportunities, medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurance, as well as short and long-term disability. Come join our incredible team today and make Genco your career that will work for you. Apply at gencofcu.org or at any branch location.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
It's time for fantasy guru Jennifer Smoak, brought to you by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, a hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive.
And here we go, this 5 o'clock hour. Jennifer Smoak, Fantasy Football League guru, her team is doing well. Today we look into that a little bit, but also into some fantasy football questions on the chat room. Fire away, and we'll try to answer those for you. Jen Smoak joins us now. Your team is playing pretty well. I mean, fantastic, in fact. You've dug yourself out of a ditch.
Yes, my team exploded last week. It was my highest scoring week so far with over 187 fantasy points, and I am now in third place.
Well, Jen, things are looking up for you a lot. You've got good matchups this week. What's the biggest concern? Is it TJ Hawkinson playing for a new team week one? Is it that Tyler Lockett is questionable? What is it?
So I think now that I don't know if you saw, I picked up Deontay Foreman this week on waivers, which had an explosive week last week with, 3 touchdowns over 118 yards. So I think right now that second running back position is still like a weak spot for me. And I keep kind of rotating. I dropped Antonio Gibson, then I picked him back up because, he's had 2 pretty good weeks back to back, and he's getting more passes, which helps his PPR appeal. And I wasn't sure, how he was going to play as soon as Brian Robinson came back, but I feel like they're throwing him the ball more. So that's always good for me. But I still feel like someone like Antonio will probably just stay on my bench until I desperately need him. But I do need to kind of like I'm playing that week, that running back 2 position week to week. But I think it will be hard to kind of sit Foreman this week after the week he had. But that, and then like you mentioned, I'm a little concerned with Hawkinson, learning the playbook, and it's kind of hard to keep him in because I'm not sure how many reps he'll get. But hopefully he'll take some, notes from McCaffrey because he sure hasn't had any problem learning the 49ers offense. And I really think it's a good spot for him, especially because, he just hasn't been super dynamic with the Lions except for that 1 week that he just had a huge week. So I'm excited to see what he does now that he's in Minnesota.
I have one roster suggestion for you. Cordell Patterson on IR right now, but he's in his 21-day window, so keep an eye out for him and try to get him before anybody else does. And then your running back 2 problem is probably solved because once he comes back, they'll have to give him the ball a lot. They're trying to make the playoffs, the Falcons are.
Yeah, that's actually funny that you said that because I was just, trying to figure out the last 2 days if I needed to decide between him and Antonio Gibson. And I know that, like I mentioned, I just know that that's not those two guys aren't necessarily ones that I'm going to plan to start anytime soon. But at the same time, I do see a lot of potential for Cordero. So would you pick him over Gibson, or would you try to drop somebody else and pick Cordero up?
Well, I never like to carry two defenses, so I would have just dropped it. I know the Cowboys defense is okay, but you could stream defenses with
the Cowboys defense help win.
No, they're not just okay; they're good.
Yeah, I mean, as far as fantasy points go, yeah, they're good.
For
they're
fantasy,
fine.
yeah.
But yeah, and they're good, and I'm not trying to say that, but I don't like that. Or I would just cut Antonio Gibson, and because there's the far more upside with Cordero Patterson.
All right, yeah. Cowboys are a top 3 defense, so, okay. But anyway, that's fine. All right, so fantasy this upcoming week. But they're on a bye, so that's why I had the Bills. That's why I have 2 just this week. But, yeah, okay, well, then I'll consider putting Cordero in over Gibson. And, yeah, I'll probably take your suggestion on that then.
She always, look.
Consider.
She's never once rubber stamped something I've told her to do.
No,
I mean,
consider.
so that's
thumbing your nose.
Yeah.
All right,
I'll think about it.
And actually, you know what? The Cowboys are actually the top fantasy defense in this season so far. Just saying. But anyways, okay, what's next?
Wow, she just blew your hole into there. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
No, I know. Paul's a Cowboys fan. I'm just messing with him.
But also, like in my league,
if I'm reading that stat right,
I'm in 2 leagues. I'm in 2 leagues that we've chucked the defense as far as. We don't have it on the roster anymore. It's just not something we do because they've changed all the rules.
Get rid of kickers too?
No, that's never leaving. I'll die on that hill. But Jen, what do you think about some of the trade deadline moves this week? Like, say, Kadarius Toney for the Chiefs. Was that somebody you would pick up and maybe stash long term, or do you think that's maybe not a this year move?
Well, I actually think that Meredith, who I'm playing this week, picked him up, or hold on, I saw somebody did just pick him up because I just saw it on the recent activity. I'm pretty sure, or maybe they didn't. I could have sworn I saw him on someone's team. But yeah, gosh, it's just like, okay, Meredith has Smith-Schuster, and he's had 2 big weeks before the bye week with over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown each game. So it's like I feel like the potential for anybody that's playing for the Chiefs is up there. I don't really need another wide receiver option right now. I feel like I've got some pretty solid guys. But, I mean, I definitely feel like if somebody does need somebody for a wide receiver, and anybody that is on Patrick Mahomes' team is definitely a good positive pick for you to pick up. So I don't know if I'm going to, just because I don't really have room for him. But I definitely think it's a smart decision for other people to make with the way that, Mahomes utilizes his wide receivers.
Paxton asked Mrs. Smoak, Derrick Henry is going to run all over the Chiefs. And then MP said, I'm thinking about offering Patrick Mahomes for Derrick Henry. Is that a good trade? I'm struggling at running back.
If you're struggling at running back, I mean, it would depend on who you have as your backup quarterback. If you still have a pretty decent backup quarterback, then I would definitely go with that if you are struggling at running back. I mean, Derrick Henry, last week was his 4th consecutive game with over 200 yards on the ground, and he's averaging 26 points a game in his last 5 starts. So I definitely feel good, about that. I know he had kind of a slow start to the season, and I was stressed about him being my first round draft pick, but I would say if you can find a pretty solid quarterback to replace Mahomes, because quarterbacks, they can all get a pretty decent amount of points. I mean, even just someone like Justin Fields is probably available, and he's been having a great few weeks. So I feel like definitely running backs are hard to come across unless you get them on the waivers and you beat somebody else to it. So who wants to get rid of Mahomes? Nobody, but you can always find a quarterback that can at least get you a good solid amount of points.
Well, Jennifer, that's very sound advice considering his backup is Dak Prescott. So.
Yeah, but
yeah.
They're off. He can't do it.
Yeah,
this
he can't
week,
do it this week.
Yeah.
I mean, or you got to pick up somebody else. But
so, who among your team? And I've watched it because I have to painfully go through this every weekend, even though that's why I gave up fantasy football. Who is underperforming in your opinion?
Oh, that's rude. Okay. Well, there is one girl that she's just having a hard time.
No, not a team. I'm talking about your team. Your team.
Okay, sorry. Okay, probably. I mean, Debo. I mean, I know he was on bye last week, and now he's hurt. But like, I love Debo, and I do think that Debo's a dynamic player. But like I said before, he is not the explosive fantasy player that he was last year. And I had one really big, solid week from him that unfortunately didn't benefit me. But you know, I just want more from him. And now you add McCaffrey to the mix, which, you know, Debo was running the ball. He was catching the ball. And now I feel like, you know, with the way McCaffrey played last week, I mean, geez, they don't really need anybody else on the team. But it's just hard. I'm a little bit disappointed with his performance. And then, like I said last week, you know, everyone, all the commentators and people are always like, you know, Debo's such a dynamic player. He's so great. And they say that as he's sitting here doing these big things, but I don't feel like he gets the ball enough to do those big things. So I would say, you know, he's probably one of the people on my team that I've been disappointed in. And then obviously James Conner. Ew. Like I just, you know, Daniel warned me that he was, you know, injury prone, but he's been terrible. And then I was reading something about how the Cardinals haven't been able to run the ball really well since he's been out. Okay, they weren't running the ball really well when he was in, so that's just stupid. That's an excuse. And I have not been pleased with him, especially since I skipped out getting Aaron Jones or Saquon Barkley with that pick in the draft. But, you know, that's part of fantasy. You never know what to expect or what's going to happen. So those would probably be two of my more disappointing players.
I'm just glad that
she might play Saquon Barkley this week.
Yeah, Debo's been ahead that one game where he helped. I think, did he help you win that week?
Saquon's on bye this week, I thought.
Oh, is he? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so she can't play him, thank God. And then she's also has Jonathan Taylor, who's questionable with an ankle injury and didn't practice today. And then Mark Andrews, who's also questionable with a shoulder and ankle injury and also didn't practice today. So, you know, that's kind of beneficial. Sorry for me, but, you know, we'll see. But, you know, it'll be interesting. Meredith's in second place right now, and she's 6-2. So we'll see, you know, what happens.
All right, last question. I lost what I was. Oh, you made the prediction for Texas Tech to beat Baylor. All three of us did, as we were all wrong. Now your favorite team actually is Oklahoma as your brother. And now Oklahoma Baylor play this weekend. Go.
OU. Sorry.
Took her less time to say that than it took her to say Tech. All right.
But, I mean, that probably just means that Baylor's going to win. So, you know, I'm disappointed with a lot of my teams in the Big 12 this year, but we'll see. But I'm going to pick OU.
All right. Thank you very much. Jennifer.
Okay. Bye,
Smoak,
guys.
Fantasy football guru. Her team's been hot. She's 4-4, tied for third, but an edge because of scores.
My team's in the Big 12. You can't have multiple teams in the Big 12.
You should have said
like
that. I thought I caught that. Paul, can you have multiple teams in the ACC?
Wanted to get out here before 6:30, so I didn't want to continue with her because she will
keep going.
You can't. Look, I can't be like, listen, I ride with the Florida State Seminoles till I die, except also I love Clemson. No.
And Wake Forest.
No. Yeah. I have one team, and damn it, I do have one team. This is 365 Sports. The top five is next.
During Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels, our great selection of new cars and trucks come with amazing deals and competitive financing that makes you ask, why shop anywhere else? The new 2022 Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. These legendary, award-winning trucks give you that first-class feel, luxurious leather trim seating options, exceptional legroom and storage, plus surround view camera options you'd expect from a premium truck. Come see our selection today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 Big 12 questions for this week. And number 5, we'll try to be as expedient as possible with this, so Garrett can get off to his second assignment tonight. Number 5, who wins the 3 and 5 bowl in Ames?
Well, is it on our predictions this week?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'll make that call tomorrow.
Yeah. But there are interesting things about this game. West Virginia, when they're going well, has really good offense. They have not had really good defense all year. Iowa State's had really good defense and no offense. So something would have to give. Is this maybe the week for Iowa State?
Maybe, yeah. I'll make my pick tomorrow, but yeah, I mean, this is a coin flip. As far as I'm concerned, I know Neil Brown's starting to appear like he's getting pretty down right now in Morgantown, and I understand why there's frustration towards him, and why some people want to change, but I don't think he's as bad as has been made out to be, as a coach. I just think maybe this is just not working here.
I think Neil Brown's situation in West Virginia is very similar to Matt Wells in Lubbock. I don't think Matt Wells is a bad coach.
Yeah.
I think he can be a great coach, and he has been a really good coach at other places. It's just he was not the guy for what they needed at the time, and maybe that's what Neil Brown is, because Neil Brown's been successful at a couple other places, and so he's just not the right guy at the right time for them.
I received an interesting text last night, pretty late at night, and then also a couple of emails this morning about the Neil Brown future, that West Virginia is pretty much ready to move on. And, Craig nailed this when they beat Baylor. All that did was delay the inevitable. It didn't turn anything around. You thought maybe it would. And it's interesting how the West Virginia fan base, we've seen it on the chat room, thinks about who they want. A lot of them are thinking Hugh Freeze, but I don't think West Virginia wants to go there. We've discussed that too. But okay.
I think he's probably going to go somewhere else. I mean, he won 10, 11, and 10 games at Troy before he came to West Virginia. He didn't just suddenly forget how to coach. I think maybe it's just a bad fit, and both teams need to, go different directions. But, yeah, I like Neil Brown, and this game, I mean, this is like an ugly toss-up game, but the winner will be very interesting.
Number 4, is Jalen Daniels going to play? Sub-question, is Spencer Sanders going to play in that game? And that's probably going to affect I've already picked Kansas early in the week because I assume that Jalen Daniels is going to play. But how effective will he be? But if even now, though, if Spencer Sanders isn't going to play, if this is a battle of the backups, you're going to have to lead to Jason Bean. So it gets kind of weird in that game. But if Jalen Daniels plays, I think that's Kansas's game to lose at home.
Yeah, it all just kind of depends on how healthy is Oklahoma State, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what is their status? It's not just a Spencer Sanders question. He's now a question more than he was last week even. And the rest of it all, I don't think has been addressed. I mean, Gundy said they're going to practice normally or, close to normal or whatever, but is it still the same numbers you were working with last week? Because I don't think that that's really going to help all that much if you're still so shorthanded. So, yeah, this is the health bowl. I mean, it's hard to call without knowing who's actually going to suit up, and Jalen Daniels is number one on that list. I guess 1A, and Spencer Sanders would be 1B, or flip that however you want to. But I would love to see Jalen Daniels come back because they haven't won since he got hurt. They have gone on a skid, and if they're not careful, they're going to start 5-0 and not make a bowl game.
Yeah,
and that's a real possibility. So yeah, this is going to be curious to see who actually suits up in this one.
I know we have to go and get on to the next one, but you look at Kansas, and yes, the loss to Baylor, the score looks different, but again, they fought back. It was 28-23. Their losses this year, even when they've been kind of in this slide without Daniels, their losses this year were Baylor, 35-23, lost by 10 at Oklahoma, and lost by 7 against TCU.
Yeah, I mean, they play close.
Yeah, again, you try to use those when you try to make somebody look better, but no, I mean, this is Kansas. They have been in these games, but now you wonder if they're just running out of gas.
Number 3, can K-State repeat their defensive performance? And I don't mean shutting out their opponent, but can they play with the same level of intensity against Texas that they did against Oklahoma State last week? Because as much as we talk about that offensive explosion, their defense just put a chokehold on the Pokes last week. And that was, I think I even came away more impressed with that than I did with how well Will Howard and Deuce Vaughn and everybody else played. Cade Warner and
they had like less than 200 yards offense.
Yeah, it was such an impressive defensive performance. It's why I'm, they're home and their defense is playing well. I don't know how, this one's the hardest game to me to pick this week, but if they can repeat that, then Texas is in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, they played a great game, and they're going to be at home, and even still, they're slight underdogs last I checked. So, if they can duplicate that, then I think a lot of people feel good about their chances. But what are the odds that they do that? I don't know if they can go back to back, but they seem to be in a good spot right now, and very curious how they manage the quarterback situation on Saturday. But yeah, they can repeat that, but it's just going to be a lot tougher because this isn't some super banged up squad that's on the opposite side of them. This is going to be, I would imagine a very motivated Quinn Ewers. This is going to be Bijan Robinson. This is going to be Xavier Worthy. It's about to get a little bit more difficult.
35-0 at halftime against Kansas State. Then they put the pedal to the metal. It was 28-10, I think, or 28-10 at one point late first half against TCU, and then they gave up that late touchdown and lost. So to me, they jump on your throat and just suck you dry at halftime. And can they start like that against Texas at home? And that sure would get that crowd going nuts, because Texas is the team that usually plays pretty well, and they struggle in the second half.
Yeah. Number 2, will Tech ride with Morton, or will they kind of do that musical quarterbacks thing again? I kind of hope they learn their lesson. Just ride with Baron Morton, for better or for worse. If he's healthy out there, let him take his lumps and get through it.
I agree.
I think they outthought themselves last week, and it burned them badly.
Yeah, I mean, if Donovan Smith, though, connects on that broken up pass, they score probably, and that game's suddenly really different, guys. Let's not forget that broken up pass, if they convert there, that might have just flipped the entire game. So I understand kind of where they were coming from, just trying to get a jolt and all that, keep Baylor on their heels. But yeah, they do need to probably have more of a streamlined idea of who really is the guy, and it's Baron Morton. I mean, I think it's Baron Morton, but you listen to Joey, and he's still talking about Tyler Shuck and what Donovan does, and it's just I get it, man. You can be a college team that has more than one quarterback and still be effective. We've seen that over the years, but man, it just seems like it kind of makes things a a little confusing for the guys involved.
Yeah. And number one, does TCU play with a chip on their shoulder, maybe even bigger so, after they heard what they heard this week? And if you're Sonny Dykes, you try to keep that away from them. But, dear God, how can you? Do they play with a chip on their shoulder, or do they?
I think they already do.
Yeah, but does it get bigger?
I think that with Sonny Dykes, I don't think he's going to be one of those emotional up and down roller coasters like the previous coach.
No.
I think they play with the chip on their shoulder already. I don't think they need to add one.
Yeah, I think they already kind of have it just naturally. They had it with Patterson. They just seem like a team that always sort of has that edge. I don't think you ever just see TCU just get popped in the mouth and get thrown around, right? I mean, I can't think of many instances of it, at least off the top of my head. I can certainly think of it for a lot of other teams in the league, though. But yeah, I think that they'll have a chip on their shoulder, and I just think it's a matter of not having to rely on a comeback is probably the biggest thing for them, is to just not put themselves into a position where they've got to hit some explosive plays. They can. They hit a bunch of them last week. They hit a bunch each and every week, but they do sometimes get themselves into a hole. And when you're explosive like they are, you can get out of it pretty quickly. But eventually you're probably going to run into somebody who puts you in a hole, and you start to dig out, and they kick you back down into it again. And, whether or not that's this week remains to be seen. But I do think Tech's going to be fired up to play. There's going to be, I'm sure, a good Red Raider representation being in Fort Worth. Just kind of the back and forth between these two teams. I think TCU's the better team, clearly, and should win at home. But I think Tech's going to, make them scrap, and I think they'll be ready for that.
Congratulations to Belleville High's Baylor freshman Richard Reese, named the National Freshman of the Year semifinalist, having an amazing year. Speaking of that, we have his high school coach. I did a podcast with him for my high school podcast. A few minutes with him about Richard Reese and what a couple of great stories he shares with us. We'll have that tomorrow, among more. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, Jack McKenzie, Garrett Ross on his way to go watch the women's play against Southwest Baptist. Thank you on the chat room, text line, sponsors, all of you. Spread the word, like button, subscribe. Thank you. 10:30 tonight, the CW channel. Sports Tonight. I'm David Smoak. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 on 365 Sports.